Did she say what kind of animal it was that attacked her?
So yeah, they're saying it's some type of animal attack. Statistically, there's been more animal attacks, mysterious deaths, people gone missing.
In other news, local authorities remain perplexed by the animal attacks.
What attacked you in the woods?
An animal. What else could it have been?
Welcome to It Was an Animal Attack, your home of the supernatural drama series. I'm Sandile.
And I'm Fadzai.
And we are back to talk about our icon, our legend, our main character queen, Miss Elena Gilbert. No corrections or notes from me from last session.
Look at that!
And you know what? It's all about growth. It's all about change and healing. And being absolutely perfect at everything that you do. And not many of you can say that. Okay? So...
Elena can relate. If you ask Caroline.
Oh, I can't wait to get into that and the Caroline thing, because there is much to say. But today we are talking about Elena, and we are picking up from where we left off, which I believe was the conversation between Elena and Catherine at the tomb about Klaus coming for her as a doppelganger and potentially killing all her loved ones if she does not comply. Next episode, it's not relevant, but it's this awkward encounter with a naked Rick and a bashful Jenna in the Gilbert home, where it's like, oh, Jenna and Rick are very serious now, and Elena's like, oh, cute, okay, good for you, you deserve a little fun, girl. And I like Rick, he's cool, and he's also someone I can trust. Also, meanwhile, Jonas Martin, who's one of the witches that's working with Elijah, is in her house just stealing her stuff, grabbing her hair from her hairbrush, jewelry, a photo, just like, for my witchy means. The Salvatores now are like, okay, we need Bonnie to drop the tomb seal because we need the moonstone back. Because now all this Klaus drama is coming down. And it really is like, maybe I shouldn't have left that moonstone in with her. Elena objects because she's like, listen, the Klaus threat is too great. None of us should be trying to figure out some way to sort this out or like bypass this. It's only going to get people hurt. She goes to the Salvatore house and encounters a robed Rose because Rose and Damon have decided to have a little, I almost said menage a trois, but there's only two of them. What do you call it when it's like a little...
A sneaky link. I don't know. No, a sneaky link.
As the kids say.
A sneaky link is not sexual, I don't think. It's not necessarily...
Is it not? I thought it was.
Is it? I'm old. I'm 162 candles old.
I'm 160, so clearly we are not going to figure it out between ourselves. She says, actually, I'm here looking for you, Rose. I'm on a fact-finding mission, and I need somebody who's not going to give me grief. And Rose is like, okay, well, what's going on? And Elena's like, how would you like to be a daywalker? Rose is like, what are you talking about? And she's like, listen, I'm gonna go find some shit out about the sun and moon curse. If we can break it for vampires, you can walk in the sun, girlie, so help me out. So Rose is like, I need that more than anything. I haven't seen the sun in 500 years.
Back when daylight rings were exclusive. Back when daywalking meant something.
It just so happens more witches show up.
We used to be a real country.
We used to be a real country where vampires couldn't walk in the sun and suffered. So they head off to this guy Slater's house, who Rose knows, who's like, she refers to him as a vampire almanac. He is himself a vampire, but he liked to keep tabs on vampires and like their histories. He was the way that she and Trevor got in contact with Elijah. Damon and Rose had already gone to Slater. Elijah had come back from the dead, as they realized, and he threw a bunch of coins and exploded that like cafe, the vampire cafe that had the UV deflecting windows, and burned everybody inside. And that's how they knew, oh, Elijah's back and alive. Okay.
Crazy that canonically it's the UV radiation specifically that burns vampires. Because I'm like,
yep,
there's other light. The light that's coming through, everything in the visible light spectrum is coming through, and I assume other stuff. That's not hurting them. It's specifically the UV rays that burn vampires.
I guess it's that, like, if it was visible light that also hurt them, then a light bulb would hurt them, right? That would burn them, because that's visible light.
I would just think it's any of the light from the sun, because it's magic. I would just think all the components of sunlight itself, because it's not science, but it's like...
It is a strange scientific bent to it, for sure. But at the same time, it's like, magic is just science we haven't understood yet. you know?
I guess. In a similar fashion, in True Blood, I think regular UV lights can burn vampires.
Yeah, they're grabbing those, well, they're ultraviolet, obviously. I was gonna be like, yeah, they're like bluish purple. Yeah, ultraviolet. So they grab those little, you scan for like evidence with them, right? That's UV.
Yeah.
They grab those and they start use them to burn. Obviously, they're high intensity and they're like on the ceiling or whatever. True Blood is very high tech. I kind of like it. Oh, to invoke Underworld again. In Underworld, they have UV bullets, which I thought was crazy because it's like, how do you trap... Every bullet would have to have its own UV cell in it that like triggers on impact. The concept is cool. I think it costs a lot more than you think to do that. Visually, it was really cool. They don't know that Elijah has tracked down Slater after that and has dispatched him summarily and dropped him off in his home. So when Elena and Rose enter Slater's house, they find him lying dead in the middle of the room. They then find that his human girlfriend, Alice, I think her name is there. She was like a vampire groupie. She wanted Slater to turn her. And Elena's like, hi, Alice. We need some information about Slater. We're trying to get through to these originals. If you help us get that, then Rose will turn you into vampire. And Rose looks at Elena and is like, huh? And then after Alice agrees and goes, Elena steps back. Rose is like, you know she's not getting anywhere near my blood. And Elena's like, she doesn't know that. Don't worry about it. And it's interesting to be like, Elena's wheeling and dealing now.
Power broker this season.
Power broker.
But I found it interesting that Rose was being so precious about her blood being used to turn someone. Because I'm like, in this universe, if you're not an original and people aren't linked to you, which is more of a one-way relationship on their end, if a vampire turns someone, that's really it. That's the end of that relationship. You're not responsible for them. You can't control them. Like what does it matter?
It's not like True Blood where like they're your fledgling and now you're in charge. You have to make sure they get,
So I'm like, Rose, if it's life or death, couldn't you have just given this girl your blood? Does it really matter that much to you?
I think she found it a personal affront because of what Catherine had done to her, right? Because Catherine had tricked her into giving her blood and then turned herself into a vampire and gotten her in trouble with the originals. I think she's just like, no, my blood is personal now.
That makes sense. Now my headcanon is that Rose never turned a single person after Catherine Pierce.
Yeah, absolutely possible.
She wouldn't even heal an injured person. She's like, no, last person I healed hanged herself, and now I'm in trouble for it.
Not worth it. By the way, crazy that they just like full screen, whole screen show Catherine hanging herself in that scene. I thought they were just gonna show her feet like TV shows usually do. No, girl, they show you everything and they hang on it. And I'm like, no, my God, no pun intended. Absolutely, that was not a joke. Oh my word.
Oh no,
but they really like hold and they zoom into her face with like the bent neck. I'm like, was this necessary?
It's a show where we've seen extracted hearts and torn out throats and like stomach stabs, and ultimately Catherine wasn't trying to properly kill herself. She wanted to transform into a vampire.
It was suicide with purpose as opposed to as escape, which is like, the emotional weight is different. It's just like, damn, that's really good.
Temporary suicide.
I guess like we live in a post 13 Reasons Why world. Crazy to look back on an older show and be like, damn, just out in the open? Woof. All right. Yeah, so she tells Rose, no, don't worry, that's fully a trick. Girlie puts in the password, shows them all the information, and she tells Alice, okay, I need you to send a message to this person and tell them the doppelganger is ready to give herself over to Klaus. Come and find me. And Rose goes, what the hell?
It's like, psych, Rose, she was using you too.
I fully duped and used you as well. I did not plan on breaking this because I'm trying to save my people. I'm sure you understand. And Rose is like, fooled by another Petrova. I do not appreciate this. So Rose goes off to the side and calls up Damon. Instead of Rose just grabbing Elena and running out of there, which she had the power to do, she calls Damon to come here. Damon shows up, throws a fit. Some vampires show up. This one guy called Cody. I think they sent a message to a guy called Cody. So Cody shows up with two of his goons. They're like, we're here for the doppelganger. And Elena's like, thank you for coming. And Damon is grabbing Elena by the forearm and is like, I will break your arm. Noteworthy moment. Meanwhile, Elijah has gotten Jonas, his witch, who, remember Jonas? He was in Elena's room snatching things. Elijah's like, I need you to find the doppelganger. So Jonas does a shadow spell, which is like a locator spell, but it's like almost astral projecty. He like sees where she is almost visually and helps Elijah find that place. The Jonases are very much like, yeah, spirit projection, astral projection. It's very cool stuff. What did I say? The Jonases? The Martins. Yes, the Martins are very much like that. Elijah finds this place. Upon entry, removes the heart of the first goon he encounters. And he falls down. Cody and his remaining goon turn around and they're like, Elijah, we came to find the doppelganger so we could bring it to you because you need to take it to Klaus. And Elijah's like, who else have you told of this? And they're like, no one. And he's like, excellent. Immediately removes both of their hearts.
Which by now I've learned through TV. If somebody asks you, who else have you told? Be like, I posted it on Facebook for all the world to see.
I've actually circulated it a lot. And everybody knows. I don't think that would stop them from killing you. I think it would just... well, I guess you could motivate them to be like, who have you told? And now I have to keep you alive and torture you until you tell me who it is.
Maybe I can use that to like stall until I can think of an escape.
You know, if you're Elena, that's your bargain. That's your leverage. You gotta use it. So he kills all these goons and then leaves. Damon and Elena, they're like, oh, okay. Because Rose, again, at this point, Rose has run away. Rose is I love a girl who preserves herself. She said, I got away from this man once. I'm not risking it.
Hey, she didn't spend 500 years on the run by not knowing when it's time to deuce out of a situation.
You know when it's time to go. Sometimes giving up is the wrong thing. Sometimes to run is a strange thing. No?
I don't know this song.
It's time to go. Bonus track. Never mind. It's okay. It's Taylor Swift's Evermore. It's probably best. So, Elena goes home with Damon yapping in her ear about something. They get to the door, open the door, and find Jeremy standing there with a bandage over his neck. And he has to tell them that's Stefan because Jeremy went into Catherine's tomb thinking he was hot shit. He would be able to get the moonstone out using one of Bonnie's spells and got trapped. Stefan had to go in and rescue him. And now Stefan is trapped in the tomb with Catherine. Elena runs down there to try and go in. Damon stops her from going in and is like, you're not getting past me, so stop bothering. And so she leaves. And that's the end of that episode. Rough times this era. A lot of bad things happening. A lot of things out of Elena's control. So Elena wants to take the moonstone to Klaus because Stefan's trapped in the tomb and everyone's in danger. Bonnie and Jeremy are like, absolutely not. And Bonnie stops her with magic. Meanwhile, Elijah gets into Elena's house through Jenna, claiming to be doing research on
Jenna,
Mystic Falls. Poor Jenna.
Still isn't in the know after everything that's happened. They still have not told her.
I always say, it's more dangerous to not tell people what's going on. You're in a superhero story, you're in a supernatural story. Tell your loved ones what's going on, or they'll be in danger.
Especially in vampire stories specifically, where one of the big rules is whoever lives under your roof, or sometimes whoever owns the house, can invite vampires in. Mm-hmm. Then the people you live with absolutely need to know what's going on. Otherwise, as we've seen, they just invite people in all willy-nilly.
Invite people in, they get taken off their vervain, they have to knife themselves in the chest because they've been compelled. It's like, what have you achieved now by keeping them in the dark? But hey, that's a lesson they have to learn, unfortunately. So Elijah shows up.
It's a jump scare. Like, he's behind like an open door. And then when they shut the door, because then it's like, oh, so some guy, some historian is here to collect some of your mom's things. Elena closes the door and suddenly he's there and she jumps and he's like, boom. Hi, I'm Elijah.
He then leaves, goes out the front door to be like, thank you, Jenna, for all this information, blah, 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 and leaves out the front door. Elena immediately runs upstairs to go make sure Jeremy's fine. Before she can get to it, Elijah has shown up in the corner of the, like, stairwell there and he's like...
Leapt through an open window, I can only assume.
Yep.
He used Anna's move, but in reverse.
I'm swan diving in. I'm going to dive upwards through your window and land gracefully with all the power of my 1,000 years. She then leads him into a room and closes the door and he tells her, listen, I mean you and your family, no harm. And I don't want you to be taken for Klaus's purposes. Elena's like, oh, okay. So what do you want? And he's like, my reasons are my own. And then she's like, but you're here to make a deal. Listen, deals are my shit right now. So you've come in great luck and great fortune. Elijah's like, all I want you to do is nothing. Non-action. until such time that we can draw Klaus out with you as bait and I kill him. And she's like, oh, okay.
Elijah said neutral Jing. Not to invoke Avatar, but...
Elijah said no positive, no negative. Just don't react. And just wait until the time is right, and I'll take care of everything, so long as y'all don't move against me. Elena says, I can work with this, because this whole time I've just been trying to make sure all my loved ones are safe. So if you can promise me that... And then she goes, but also, I want one more thing from you. And he's like, Miss Gilbert, are you negotiating with me? And I have to say, I know we've spoken about this before, me and you, Fadzai. This is the first moment where Elijah has come here to this like young girl, this doppelganger that he's like a means to an end. And then she's like, but also I want something else from you. And he's like, this young, I'm 1,000 years old. We have had several encounters that I've shown all my power, and she's like, I'm gonna negotiate with you. This is kind of impressive. I think he's impressed by Elena in this moment, and that colors their interactions going forward.
He's quite impressed. This is the start of their budding mutual respect, which, I mean, it goes places. Season 3.
It goes places. Is what I will say. But regardless, he's like, okay, I'll protect all your friends. And she's like, I want one more thing. And she brings him down to the tomb where Catherine and Stefan are. And she's like, well, get my boyfriend out of there. Elijah walks up. Stefan is like, we killed you. And he's like, well, I came back. And he's like, I'm here to secure your safe exit. You may walk out. And he's like, I can't. And he's like, I assure you, I have some magical friends who've made sure that's possible. So he starts to walk. Catherine sees what's happening and starts to vamp rush after Stefan manages to get through the barrier. Immediately, Elijah's in front of you and says, Katerina, we have much more to talk about, but for now, and then compels her to stay in the tomb. Because the seal is down, the Martins have broken the seal completely. There's no magical reason she can't exit, but because of Elijah's compulsion, she has to stay there.
I love it. Especially because earlier, when Catherine is talking to Stefan, I think, about Klaus coming, he calls her a psychotic bitch. And she tells him that, actually, Stefan, you think that you trapped me in this tomb, but haha, I'm happy to be in the tomb. Because when Klaus gets to Mystic Falls, and he will, I will be safe in the tomb that no vampire will enter because they know they can never leave. I'll be the safest psychotic bitch in town.
Love her. Yeah, Stefan gets out of the tomb. She's made this deal with Elijah, and Stelena are reunited. Again, Stelena are reunited, and Elena has told the Salvatores about this deal. Stefan is wary of the deal that Elena has made with Elijah. He says that since he's made no such deal, he's still going to go do some fact-finding, which involves locating Isabel. Isabel was working with Catherine. Isabel might have some information about Klaus and what's going on there. Damon, meanwhile, asks Elena to watch over Rose because she, in a different set of events, has been bitten by Jules, a werewolf that Damon antagonized, and is now wasting from a wolf bite.
Insane decision on Damon's part.
Some crazy choices.
One thing I noticed about the Vampire Diaries, and this is particularly poignant regarding Elena, who for a long time, you know, she's the main human, like physically, she's like the weakest of the main characters when Matt's not around, is that everyone in this show, at various points, they will treat Elena like this delicate little flower who can't handle herself. But then at other points, they'll be like, I'll just leave her in this very dangerous situation. She'll be fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's no problem with this.
Yeah, Damon actually is the king of that too, because he is the most extreme of it, right? He is the one who will refuse to have Elena go anywhere because it's too dangerous. And then he'll just put her in situations where she's in the most danger. Stefan is guilty of it too. Like you said, him leaving her with Vicky while she was like post-transition.
Yeah.
Crazy. There's not a lot outside of her taking care of Rose in this, which in itself is like this sweet thing, but also because Rose is losing her mind. It's kind of rough. Before she does start to lose it though, I think she drags Elena for like not even trying to live, because Rose is the first one who's become aware of Elena's plan to just give herself over to Klaus.
While she's taking care of Rose, she sees the inside of Damon's bedroom for the first time, for what that's worth.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important.
She's like mild. I mean, the seeds are being planted. She's like mildly intrigued by it. Like she's looking around as she leads Rose to Damon's bed, and Rose is like, "Oh, you've never been inside Damon's room before, have you?" And I'm like, "I should hope not, Rose."
It would be strange if she had, Rose.
What would she have been doing in here?
Keep in mind, Rose is like actively in a dalliance with Damon right now, but also she's like 500 plus, so you know.
But
she's not.
She had made it clear. She was like, "I know you're in love with Elena, and I'm not about to chase a man who's like in love with another woman. We can just be sex friends. I'm fine with that."
And good for her, you know. Accounts say that is a good lay, but you know. Rose does begin to succumb to the werewolf venom and begins to see Elena at some points as Catherine and becomes furious because, of course, Catherine tricked and betrayed her, and then also is just naturally taken over by vampire instincts and sees Elena as a nice little bag of blood. And so Elena becomes trapped in a scream situation. She's running down hallways. She's being chased around the Salvatore house.
She's final girling it, as she often does in this era.
She's final girling it, but like in that chase where she's like, because she runs through, there's a lot of good moments. There's a moment where she runs through and like traps herself in a room. She opens all the curtains and has sunlight flood the room so that there's like no area in which Rose can cross to get to her. She does a lot of cool shit like that.
There's a gnarly part of, I think Rose is like attacking her, and she like yanks open a curtain so that the sun like burns Rose's face, and Rose like screams in agony as her flesh is like melting away. And then at another point, Rose has her cornered, and Elena like digs her hand into like the rotting infected werewolf bite on Rose's shoulder.
Oh, it's so awful, but I love it. Like I said, resourceful, willing to do anything to survive this girl, and I respect it. She said, "You are not getting me." She tries the method of like, "No, Rose, it's you, it's me, you're okay, you can work through this," but it does not work because it's a werewolf bite. It's like rabies, essentially, in a strange way. Like, there's no reasoning. So she goes, "All right, well, then I'm fighting you."
And she's like, "I know you're wounded. You've got a soft spot, because obviously my human strength could never surpass your 500-year-old vampire strength. So I'm going to dig my hands into your septic flesh and hurt you."
Oh, brilliant. And good for her. Sorry, Rose, it's unfortunate, because I really like Rose. I like Rose a lot more on rewatch. As a lot of little characters in this show where you're just like, damn, you were actually really cool.
And they all die so quickly.
Just like that. At the end of it, you know, Rose is tuckered out, Rose is down. Damon comes back and he euthanizes her. Elena comes over to make sure that he's all right. Damon, of course, doing the usual shtick. It's a back and forth of, you pretend you don't care, just feel. And Damon's like, I'm too cool and emotionally stunted. So, you know, that's how that one ends. Stefan, in searching for Isabel, instead of getting to Isabel, gets through to John Gilbert, who comes back to town. So he's back. There's some drama with Jenna because Elena had not divulged to her that John is her biological father. Stefan calls Elena later about the wolves, Jules, who Damon's antagonized, and a whole pack that she's brought over. Stephen Amell Arrow, that weirdo with the hat, and a bunch of other randoms.
Well, his name was Stevie, I think.
Stevie kidnapped Caroline because a feud has been brewing with the vampires and the werewolves, and by feud I mean Damon killed Mason, which started a fight. So
I mean, also it's the moonstone of it all, because they're trying to break the sun and moon curse, which is totally real, and they need to break it before the vampires
the
do.
super real sun and moon curse, which they've roped in Tyler to help them with. Damon says they should kill Tyler, which
Of course he does.
who knows how that helps the situation. But Elena tries to talk him down, to which he says she needs to stop assuming he'll play the good guy just because she's the one asking. Damon then gets John to keep Elena hostage while he goes to the wolf situation. Because if there's two men who agree that the way to keep Elena safe is to control everything she does, it's Damon Salvatore and John Gilbert. Elena and John get into an argument. John is saying that he's trying to keep her safe. Elena says she's got it covered. He says it's naive to trust Elijah when they don't know him and he's an original vampire and just implicitly should not be trusted. He says that at the end of the day, they're family, and Elena throws it back in his face and says, you don't get to use that word. It is off limits to you, which I thought was fun.
I'm like, weren't you raised with this as your uncle, though?
So technically, it's like, I get what you're saying, Elena, but also he has been your family prior to you learning he's your father. So, but chosen family, Rina Sawayama, I'm all here for it.
Yeah.
You can choose to cut that man out if you want. So she says that, and he's like, that doesn't change the facts. And she says, for sure. And here's the facts. You might be my father, but I'm never going to be your daughter.
I love that line.
Natasha Bedingfield Strip Me playing in the background. It's like, ooh, emotional moment.
Natasha's songs were still being used in series at this point. Wow, good for her.
I think this was a late entry for Natasha. I think Strip Me was around this time. Later, John gives Damon the White Oak Ash Dagger, which is the secret plan he's been talking about to protect Elena.
One of the longest named objects in this universe.
4 names to this title. The White Oak Ash Dagger, which is a way to kill an original. Damon asks where it's from, and John says Isabel, and that she's very good at finding things, which I thought was cute because just like Elena, her mama's a rogue. John comes back to Elena's house and gives her a charm bracelet that belonged to her mother.
Did it belong to her mother, or her Isabel mother?
Her mother, Miranda.
Ah, okay.
Which I'm curious as to why he has a charm bracelet that belongs to
Yeah,
Miranda.
because I do seem to remember a scene where he says her mother, and she's like, ugh, Isabel, and he's like, no, your real mother, Miranda. And then I'm like, where did you get
Why do you have it and not Jenna or Elena, who was very close with her mother?
He probably stole it one time to like pawn it off somewhere to like pay some of his debts.
This is the thing. I don't know where this came from. Maybe just because it's such a trope. I mean, it happens in the story, right? Where a brother falls for his brother's girl. In my head, for some reason, I had this thing of John having been secretly in love with Miranda, even though Grayson was dating her. And that's why he has this bracelet, which he stole from her.
Maybe.
I don't
maybe
think
that's
any
even,
of that's
maybe that's why
true.
he dated Jenna. He was like, maybe if I get the other sister, I can fill
You
the
know?
void. And then it didn't work out because she just wasn't Miranda. Also, I'm like, what? I had never thought of this before. We should have discussed this in the John episode. How old is John? Because Isabel had Elena as a teenager.
Yes.
But Isabel, who has been a vampire for a few years, is physically old enough that she is Alaric's wife, and Alaric is like 30. But Jenna is like 23, 24.
25.
So I'm like, when did John date Jenna when she seems to be quite a bit younger than him?
So, assuming him and Isabel are the same age, right?
Then he's like 33.
Assuming she had a child at 16.
And Elena's now 17.
That makes her 33, like, chronally, even if not biologically. Biologically, she's like, what, 31? How long ago did she die before Rick
Yeah.
shows up in town? So that would make John 33, which would make Jenna, like, 8 years younger than him? Oh, no.
So when did you see? Because then I'm like, if they dated when Jenna was like in high school, then John was like well into college.
No
Oh,
wonder
no.
she wasn't worried about Damon hanging around. She was like, yeah, rite of passage for a summer's woman, apparently. What?
That is my headcanon now. This is why Jenna hates John, because he was like, her brother-in-law's little brother, still quite a bit older than her. She was like, oh, he's cute and interesting because I'm a young, impressionable 16-year-old and he's this cool 24-year-old. And then they dated for a bit because it was like, the early 2000s and people allowed stuff
Small
like
town. Yeah. Oh, no, I hate that. Oh goodness.
Gosh.
Also because Grayson and Miranda had to be... Grayson's already a doctor when this child is born.
Yes.
So he's minimum 24 when Elena's born. This is so... Wait, but then does that mean Miranda and Grayson are 16 years older than Jenna?
Jenna has to be very young, is like compared to Miranda is the thing, because she's less than a decade older than Elena, it seems. I mean, I don't know. She's doing
Right.
a post-grad,
She's
so
in grad
maybe
school.
she's like 27.
Yeah, we said like mid to late 20s, but she has to be... Okay,
So maybe
hold on.
only like 5 years younger than John.
Let's put it at 5 years. Let's put it at 5 years younger than John. So she's 28, right? And John's 33. But that makes Grayson and Miranda 41, which means Miranda is 13 years older than Jenna. How was Jenna conscionably partying with her older sister and Kelly Donovan? How is that even possible? So the math's not mathing here.
I think that's the thing. I think Kelly was the cool babysitter.
Yes.
Who's friends with your sister, who's like slipping you alcohol which your sister would never allow you to have.
But that means you're like 17 babysitting a 4-year-old. And giving her whiskey.
Oh yes! I forgot!
I'm worried. I'm so worried all of a sudden. I've never thought about this.
I think the writers just didn't know in their minds how old Jenna actually was.
Oh, no. Okay, that's fine. That's for another day, I think.
Maybe, I mean, you know what? People go to school at different times.
That's true.
Maybe she just went to university really late.
Yeah.
And she is doing her postgrad in her 30s. Or maybe she changed her mind, she switched courses.
She finished her undergrad, she had some free spirit years, she came back to do grad school in like her late 20s, and now she's 30. It's fine. It's not terrifying and concerning.
And she's
it's
just
okay.
aging really well, which is why she's being played by an actress who's like...
Who's in her 20s. God. Anyway, John gives her this bracelet that belonged to Miranda and tells Elena that Miranda and Grayson will always be her parents. He just wants to do everything he can to protect her and what's left of his family, even if she hates him. And he heads off, which I thought was nice.
It's always nice when he heads off.
It is. Stefan comes back from the werewolf drama because him and Damon went to go rescue Caroline from the wolves. They struggle like hell, but Jonas Martin comes in to save them as per Elijah's deal with Elena. He then tells Elena that he needs her help with something and brings Elena and Bonnie to Caroline's house to cheer her up because she went through it and also learned that Tyler apparently sucks. So,
which is just, I mean, we'll get
into
it's fine.
it.
Stefan and Caroline episode, we can get into it. It's just, it's so sweet. And I'm just like, this friendship. He was like, my friend needs help, but I can't really do it. She needs her gal pals. Let me go fetch them.
Yeah.
Love the two
It's
of them
lovely.
as friends.
It's lovely. All right then. We heard you the first time. But yeah, they have a lovely little slumber party and the episode ends like that.
Also, why did I feel like I hadn't seen Bonnie in a while when she shows up for this?
Oh, she's most likely disappeared for some time. She comes in at the end of that episode and it's like, oh, remember Bonnie's still around? God. So they open on that the next morning and Elena and Stefan speak on the phone. They decide to take a little private getaway from everything that's currently going on. They go to the Gilbert Lake house and there's this cute moment where Stefan is stuck on the threshold spell that keeps vampires from entering. She's like, oh no, the house belongs to John. I didn't realize that this would be an issue. And then she grins, this little mad grin. She's like, Mr. Salvatore, I formally invite you into my home. Which I thought was cute. She's a little prankster. They stand on a little jetty by the lake. She's in like a blanket and he's in a hoodie and they're like embracing and being all cute. And she's sharing some childhood memories about her family. And they then start talking about their own future memories that they might make, that there's conversations to be had about that. And Elena says that's one box that probably shouldn't be opened, which is, you know, the immortality and aging one.
Oh, so she was consciously leaving it closed. Okay.
Yes.
There's
yes.
my answer.
It seems like she's actively keeping it at bay. Stefan says they can open it when she's ready, and she says for now, she just wants to stay in this moment. Later, he's preparing dinner for them. I wrote her, this bitch goes, my dad did all the cooking too. I hate to bring it up because it's like, recently I've been informed that the Freud thing where it's like, oh, Freud would be kicking his feet or whatever, is that like Freud has sort of been memeified in modern day, and it's like all his shit was a bit more complex and he was working with science he had at the time, blah blah blah. But there is something to be said about how it's like, oh, he's kind of like my dad, he's a viable he's husband material.
I mean, based on things Elena says later on about the start of her relationship with Stefan and what had been going on in her life just before they met, maybe.
There is something there. There is something there. She goes to get a jacket so that she can go outside and fetch more wood for their fire. And she gets caught up in her mother's things. She then throws her great-grandfather's jacket at Stefan and tells him that he looks hot in it, which again is like... What are we doing here?
Her great-grandfather, who Stefan probably met.
Probably
maybe
knew.
8, depending what era he was in.
Yeah.
What ripper phase he was in.
Exactly. Then they're making out in her parents' old bedroom.
Which wild setting to be making out in. I'm like, I don't think I could.
I think he says so, and she's like, no, it's fine. And then they keep going.
I guess it was a holiday home. It wasn't like their like main.
Yeah, it's not their like
place.
actual bedroom. Yeah, that would be insane. They bump against the wall, and Stefan's like, hold on. I think this is hollow, like Clue style. What's going on? And he pulls the panels off to find a door. Inside there, they find weapons and books, and they find other Jonathan Gilbert journals from the one that they already had. Stefan's like, all right, I'm going to give you a moment because this is your family history. Unfortunately, at that time, the wolves show up because they're after Elena now as a doppelganger for this sun and moon curse that totally exists. They attack Stefan because Tyler has faked a text from Caroline's phone to find out where Elena is and led them to the lake house. Elena, at the house, senses a disturbance in the force and she immediately grabs this enormous kitchen knife because you know that's her main weapon. Running out of the house, immediately runs into Brady, again played by Stephen Amell, out on the stoop. The second he reveals himself, she turns around and impales him in the abdomen with a knife. No question, no beat. The moment she senses this man is near her, she turns around with the knife and stabs him with it. She then rushes back in and locks the door. I think he just busts through it because he's strong.
Yeah, and unlike a vampire, he doesn't need an invite.
And he's like, I can smell you, which is because he's a wolf, but also because he's a weirdo.
Can I just say, Stephen Amell, very creepy as this character. Like, it's giving serial killer slasher vibes.
And he's got the buzzed head too, which just makes him look...
Yeah.
I mean, we got used to it during Arrow, but it does make him look really like, I would see you in the woods and run in the opposite direction. There's nothing good that you're doing here. You know?
Very much like he's giving that like hot white guy who has like organs harvested in the basement from like all his victims who he found on Tinder or something.
Sebastian Stan in Beef or whatever it is. I haven't seen it. It's not Beef. Beef is the one with Glenn from Walking Dead. Oh no. What's his name?
Steven
Yeun. Yes, Beef is the
and
Steven
Ali
Yeun
Wong.
and... Yes. What's the one that's got Sebastian Stan, but he's a cannibal?
I have not watched that. I didn't know this existed.
It was like making the rounds like a year or two ago. Oh, it's also like one word and it's food related. I'll find it later. He's like, I can smell you. Elena stops and goes, okay, this is a problem. How do I solve this? She goes, oh, hold on. Takes off her jacket. And is like, let's make a plan here. And it's crazy to be like, whoa, Twilight, because that is something they do in Twilight. They take Bella's jacket and spread them out amongst the Cullens so that they can spread out and confuse James. So she takes off her jacket and throws it into one room and runs in the opposite direction of this enormous lake house. And it does confuse, I almost called him Becky. I don't know why. It does confuse Brady. Becky the werewolf hunting her down.
No, Becky gets introduced in the show later on.
While he goes into that room and sniffs her jacket and being like, oh, this was the source of the smell, which is like, wow, dude. She sneaks past him and runs downstairs. He tries to follow her, but she's laid a trap for him and she appears out of nowhere and jabs him with a stake in the neck and then runs outside. Of course, wood is not going to affect him as much as it would a vampire, so he pulls it out and chases after her right into Stefan's open hand, which rips out his heart.
Ah, yes, because Stefan had been dealing with Tyler.
Who he then convinced to be like, yeah, these people are lying to you and using you, and we are not your enemies, so wake the hell up.
Because Tyler didn't know they were gonna... Listen to the Tyler episode, we explain it there.
He does say, I didn't know, because he never knows. And Elena goes straight to him, pulls out her empathy guns, gives him a big old embrace to be like, it's fine. I could never hold it against you. Because I'm just cool like that.
And then they won't speak again until season 3.
This is their one conversation for the season, as we know. And we'll see them next season. They've got one next season. So at the end, Stefan gets a call from Damon that reveals that Elijah's plan is for Elena to die in the sacrifice as part of his plan. To like get Klaus out and then kill him. He tells Elena this, and Elena is not surprised. Has already suspected that is the case. She says Elijah was careful to say that he would protect her loved ones, but never mentioned her as part of the deal. Stefan's immediately upset because that means Elena has just accepted that she will die. Partly because it was a unilateral decision that she's made, that she'll die and leave him and everyone, and that also she's being a martyr, which he says isn't noble, it's tragic. And this does make me think of Twilight once more. There's that quote in the opening of the first Twilight movie. Where Bella's saying, I've never given much thought about how I would go, but dying in the place of someone I love. That whole quote, which is just like these like dark-haired heroines, human heroines whose like greatest heroic act is giving their lives up for other people is so like fascinating. I think like Stefan saying, it's like you could look at that and be like, this is a really heroic thing to sacrifice yourself, but also it's like, why are you so ready to go? What's that about?
At the age of 17, no less.
At 17, why are you so ready to go? And of course with Elena, and it comes out a little bit later where it's like her parents died. She has all the survivor's guilt from the accident that she was rescued from and that her parents died in. And so there's this through line of her in these first 3 seasons where it's like, she's just ready to go because she thinks she should be gone already. And that's really tragic. So yeah, that's the end of that episode, I guess. Elena does get to reading Jonathan Gilbert's journal and learns that Stefan at some point killed Jonathan Gilbert the Elder. Jonathan Gilbert obviously survived because he had the Gilbert ring. I think he tells her about some of that history, and then they end up in an argument about their difference of opinion on her sacrificing herself. When she tells him that she's read John's account of what happened, Stefan decides to tell her about the period that followed after he and Damon became vampires. How Stefan was a blood-soaked mess, and how Lexi found him and helped put himself back together. Elena then finds John Gilbert's research on the originals later in life, which includes the white oak ash dagger that John the Younger gave to them. She reads that the dagger will kill a vampire who uses it as well. And so Stefan quickly calls Damon up because they've secretly hatched this plan, him, Damon, and Alaric, to invite Elijah to their home and then stab him with the dagger.
To Jenna's home, is it not?
Yes, no, you're right. It's to Jenna.
Is it Jenna's home, or is Jenna just invited as well to like the Salvatore
It's
home?
Jenna's home because Jenna cooks the meal. It's this weird domestic situation where like suddenly, because we have Elijah, I guess, because we have this macho hunter whiskey drinking guy and these 3 men who are older than 150, apparently now it's like, oh, the women are preparing the meals. Here's Andy Starr, Damon's little blood bag girlfriend, being like, the men should take their cigars in the parlor. And it's like, what are we? Where are we? Where did we go? Why is Jenna having to host this party and cook all the food? To his credit, Rick, but it's because they're in a fight because of the whole John and Isabel thing. John's been sowing seeds of mistrust. But Rick goes to Jenna and is like, what do you need me to do? Put me to work? And she's like, no, it's fine. I've got it covered. So at least he steps up and is like, can I join in on the chores? It can't just be you women folk doing things. So Elena reads this up. Stefan rushes to either call or text Damon. Doesn't get through to Damon, then calls up Rick. And Rick gets the information and quickly tells Damon he can't use the dagger because it will kill him too. Stefan and Elena end up in a fight because they all went behind her back to screw up her deal with Elijah that she'd already made. And Stefan tells her that today, all of this telling her about his past has been to wake her up to the fact that she's giving up on her life, the same way he did all those years ago when he fell into that period of darkness. Stefan gets a call then from Rick that they've managed to kill Elijah with the dagger, And it's like, okay, all's good, wonderful. Elena keeps reading the Gilbert journal and is like, wonderful, as long as the dagger stays buried in the original, they will effectively remain dead. Stefan's like, oh shit, and sprints to tell them, but it's already too late. Elijah has woken up and dipped, and he has Jonas Martin, his trusty witch, find Elena and knocks down their lake house door with a few stones. His usual trick. Just a little whapa. Enough force you can break through anything. She tells Stefan to leave, that she'll talk to Elijah herself, then goes over to the door and tries to negotiate with a now unwilling Elijah, because the one parameter he'd given was, don't make any move against me, and everything will be fine. And what do the boys do? They immediately move against him. She tries to renegotiate, he's unwilling, and she goes, all right then, I'll just take my own life, and your plan will be ruined. And he goes, I'm sorry, Miss Gilbert, but I have to call your bluff. She's like, all right. Pulls out a little kitchen knife. She holds it to her belly first, and she's like, listen, I'm all in. He starts freaking out as she stabs herself. And he says, okay, fine. I give you my word that I won't harm anybody. So she goes, okay, then I'll come outside so you can heal me with your vampire blood. Steps outside. As he goes to heal her, she jabs him with the dagger that Damon has apparently already brought over to the lake house.
They all zipped over to that house.
They ran on foot while Elijah got into a sedan and drove over. He said, I'm not running 2 hours. I'm not some kind of beast to sprint through the woods.
I might be remembering wrong. I don't know where this memory is coming from. Pulled from the ether, perhaps. But is it this scene, or is there a scene where Elena threatens to kill herself and spoil plans involving doppelganger blood, and when her bluff is called, because it's like, we know the Salvatore boys, they'll never let you die, and then she says, yes, but maybe they'll turn me into a vampire, and I'll still be useless to Klaus.
I think it's in this scene.
It is the scene.
Because she holds the knife to her belly, and Elijah's like, please, Stefan and Damon would never let you do this. And she's like, all right, I'll just be a vampire then. And he's like, oh shit, she's got me. That's when he's like, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna call your bluff. And she's like, all right, sinks the knife into her belly and starts bleeding out on the doorstep. The thing about Elena too is that, like, she will make a threat and honor it. She is not afraid to go, I will throw myself into danger to leverage you, because all you immortal beings have entered my life and decided I am so necessary to all your plans. You don't know how ready I am to do that. It's concerning, but it is her best asset. Her best asset is that people generally need her alive, whether because they love her or because they need to use her in some sort of arcane ritual, some sort of devious plan.
She's one of the few people in the Mystic Falls gang who consistently surprises Elijah.
Yes.
Like, he's horrified when he sees her stab herself. Like, he tries to rush to the door, he still can't get in because of the threshold barrier.
And she's like, promise me. And he's like, okay, I promise. Because Elijah's a man of his word. But she is fully tricking him. She has danced around this man with ease. This 1,000-year-old man. Oh, I love it so much. And Elijah is daggered now, but he will be the first of many instances where Elena just, like, fully masterminds a situation with an original. She's very good. So they dagger Elijah, they drop him in a Salvatore cellar, and Elena tells her boys that if they want her to fight to live, then they're doing it her way, which I thought was a nice little power move of her to be like, okay, cool. I'd made a plan, y'all ran all over it. So if we're so focused on me finding a way to survive, but also keeping Klaus from harming people, then I am in charge. The next episode, Catherine's just at the Salvatore house now.
Oh yes, Catherine's little gambit. I think it's actually how that episode ends. That episode ends with Catherine, like, in the shower. Damon's probably gone off to sulk because he's like, Elena's stupid and you guys are stupid for agreeing to do things her way. She's gonna get herself killed. Yeah. I'll go rogue and I'll save her even if it means disrespecting her. I'm gonna go sulk in my room. And then he hears someone in the shower. There's the song playing and one of the lyrics is Catherine.
Yeah.
And it says Catherine, like, as she appears on screen.
Nice.
And I was like,
nice.
This is so camp.
Not even on the nose, it's inside the nose. You're not gonna miss the reference, people. It's in your face. Love it. So Catherine's just here now, and she's playing the "no, it's me, Elena" trick for shits and gigs. She's just like fooling everyone for fun now. There's no like end game to her trickery to be like, "Oh no, Catherine's here? What's happening?" And then you realize, oh, you thought you were with Elena, but you were with Catherine, and then you attack Elena by accident, and Catherine in the corner's like, "Ugh, you guys are so
She manages
silly."
to fool Stefan, the one who didn't fall for it at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think she pretends to be Elena. Stefan is like, wait, that's Elena. And then
Who have I been in bed with?
he runs off to who he thinks is Elena and is like, "Are you Catherine?" It's like, why would I be Catherine? Catherine's in the tomb. Starts choking out the real Elena, who's just like, "Stefan, you're hurting me."
It's so rough. Stefan goes to choke out Catherine, but it's Elena. And then Catherine Lena in the background's like, "Oh, you silly boy. I've got even you too now. I've perfected my gambit." And that's what it is, right? It's the progression. Because she's done this trick like this might be a third or fourth time doing it. It cements the fact that she's perfected it because she's fooled the one person who has never fallen for it.
Yes, because every time, because it was the season premiere where he realized it wasn't her when Damon didn't, and then it was later on during the whole "Give Me the Moonstone" saga where Catherine was impersonating Elena. He pretended to fall for it, and then once he got her away from everyone, he was like, "Where's Elena?" And then she pervades him and gets away.
Yep. There's that time where she crawls into his bed and puts a dream in his head, and for a split second just after waking up, he's like, "Hmm?" And then he gets up and throws her out of the bed against the wall. Never fallen for it before, and this is the moment where it's like, ah, shit. Now we're screwed.
She's perfected her straight iron technique.
She's got the doe eyes and the pin straight hair and the little scarf, and she's like, "Oh, nobody can catch me now, bitch." Which is crazy that she has to even do that, because no one could get her, ostensibly, of the Mystic Falls gang. Like, Elijah's been daggered. She's not really in danger anymore, except from, I guess, Klaus, who's coming in, so might as well prepare for that. But, like, pretend to be Elena, who Klaus wants more? Maybe it's just for fun. Elena's like, "I want this bitch gone. Why is she here?" And Catherine's like, "Hold on, listen, we all want Klaus dead, and y'all need me for that because I'm a 500-year-old vampire who's been running from him for those 500 years, so I know a thing or two." So Stefan and Elena are strategizing later that morning, and they realize, listen, we might have to deal with her for the sake of our plan. Rick catches Elena up later on John Gilbert dropping hints to Jenna to screw up their relationship, and is like, "I don't know, man, maybe we should just tell Jenna what's going on because this is getting ridiculous."
Insane that it's gotten this far. I'm like, not only is Jenna just constantly in danger because you guys allow her to be naive, she has invited Elijah into your home because she's not in the know. She was compelled by Catherine to stab herself, who is now running out and about again, and you still haven't told her.
Still two different people she invites into the home. It's like, we're at a net loss in this plan to keep her in the dark. And in fact, we always have been. I don't know what I was just watching. I think I was watching a playthrough of Spider-Man Miles Morales, where like one of the core things, because in that game, the villain turns out to be his best friend. And it's like at the point where he could have told her I say villain, she's like an antagonist. She's like doing corporate espionage / radical, like she's trying to destroy this company that is creating this substance that's going to make everyone in Harlem sick. It's like an energy, a new supposedly clean energy, but it made her brother sick, him, the engineer who worked there, and he died trying to destroy it. And so she's like, yeah, I'm going to destroy this whole company. This capitalist billionaire moving into Harlem and purporting this clean energy to make a quick buck that's going to make everyone ill. We have to destroy him. And for some reason, she's the bad guy in the game. So, I mean, she does have to recruit this group called the Underground, who are like a new mafia in Harlem. So that's the thing. But it's like, she says to Miles that like, I can't take on Roxxon alone. You'll know Roxxon. She's taking on the company Roxxon. She's like, Roxxon, I can't take them on by myself.
I do know them. They often show up in the background of Spider-Man stories. And in the comics, they are who Jessica Jones's father worked for before he died.
Oh, fair enough. But yeah, she's like, I can't fight Elon Musk and his infinite money by myself, so I have to hire the mafia. And Miles is like, villain. And everyone who played the game is like, villain. And I'm like, guys, What are we doing here? Anyway, there's a moment in the game at which I believe if he just told her he was Spider-Man, she would go, oh, I don't need the freaking underground if I have Spider-Man on my side to, again, take down this corrupt corporation that's putting Harlem in danger. Then we can just sort this thing quick. And he doesn't because, well, he's being influenced by Prowler, who's his uncle, and it's a whole thing. Point being, keeping your friends in the dark, never a good idea. She dies at the end of that game. But, like, it's this weird thing where it's like,
spoiler for those
your
of you
sins.
who might have wanted to play
I might cut this
game
out because it's not super important. But, like, because apparently everything she's done is too bad that she has to, in a moment, to save Miles. Like, she gets him away from the city because he's about to explode with electrical energy. And she tells him to let go. And he lets go of the energy. And she gets obliterated so hard that, like, no remains of her are left. She just gets either atomized or, like, her ashes are scattered in the stratosphere. Jeez. And then he falls back down and it's like, Jesus Christ, what the hell? And then it's just not addressed. His best friend 4 years. It's so crazy. That game pissed me off.
A trope that I often see in fiction. Interestingly, the two examples that immediately come to mind are both from the Superman mythos, because one was just like a recycled version of the other. But it's the create your own villain out of a friend or ally because you continued to lie to them and they became suspicious and or figured out your secret and then hated you for not telling them.
Yeah, it's like, what is the upside here, guys? What is the upside to keep? Because it seems like there's only detriments. Either you're putting your loved ones in danger or you're making them villains. Because you lied to them.
Supergirl, the CW series, like she creates a villain in Lena Luthor who had been quite an ally and then eventually a really close friend because she spends like 2 seasons not telling her, and like for at least 1 season Lena knows the truth and she's like waiting and she's giving her all these opportunities. She's dropping shade. She's like, she's hamming it up so much. She's like, Kara, I'm so glad that I have a friend like you who I can trust, who would never lie to me the way Lex has lied to me and my mother has lied to me. You know, I can't stand people who aren't honest with me. I really can't.
Yeah.
And Kara's just like, yeah, Lena, I would never do that.
Lena's like, yeah, I love that you know I have a history of trauma with loved ones being deceptive to me. I'm glad you would never do such a thing, right, Kara? Kara's like, no, never.
She's giving her so many chances. And I'm like, Kara, you really have too much faith in a pair of glasses blocking your face. I would be like, okay, this person keeps implying that I'm super honest. Maybe they know something.
At what point does the guilt eat you up, my girl? What's going on? Anyway, point being, there are more reasons to tell your loved ones than not to. Like, just for their safety. Later, Elena has a girls' night with Bonnie and Caroline, and they get Jenna to join them because she's having troubles with Rick, so they're all like boozing their sorrows away.
Jenna's drinking with teens?
Yeah, just a little teen drinking.
Cool
do they get served at the grill? No, they can't be drinking then. They're at the grill.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
she's just drinking.
Yeah.
Maybe they pre-gamed and then they pre-gamed for the Mystic Grill.
She showed up and she's like, I'll pretend I can't smell the vodka, but from now on, you guys are having soda.
Real. Elena and Caroline have a conversation about maybe it's not worth keeping loved ones in the dark. So, you know, they're getting it slowly. And then Bonnie finally confesses to Elena that she and Jeremy might start dating. She's expecting like a tense reaction, but Elena's like, oh, no, I'm thrilled. I feel like you two deserve the most in this world, and I'm glad that it could be with each other. Jeremy's been through so much. I'm happy that he would be with someone as brilliant as you. So that was lovely too.
Just like a little side, it's an interesting thing with these two characters who are women or girls in high school, where they know each other, they respect each other, they like each other as people. So the whole, oh, you're gonna date my sibling is not like a red flag, this is inappropriate, which you often see with men.
Yep.
Because men have this culture where they allow their friends...
I didn't want to say it, but yes.
Looking at you, Matt.
Yep.
They allow their friends to be shitty as people and shitty towards women. And then the minute it's the woman you're related to, then it's like, oh, no, you can't. Like, this is bad. It's like, oh, so you know your friend is a bad person.
Yeah. And now that it has to be with a woman you actually care about, it's a problem. Yeah. I didn't want to address it because I was like, there's no need to be combative about the small thing. But the gender aspect of it is very important. It's important that they're girlies, and it's important that she knows Bonnie's like the best of them.
It's just, yeah, it's very apparent in this show where we have the Matt and Tyler dynamic, where the minute that Matt senses something's going on between Tyler and Vicky in season 1. He's like, ugh, you dick. Why are you messing around with my sister? Because I know you're an asshole who casts women aside when you don't need them anymore.
But it's never been a problem before. Okay, Matthew. At the end, Stefan calls to warn Elena that Jonas Martin is coming for her because I believe at this point, Damon and Catherine have torched his son, who was like astral projecting to try and free Elijah. They flamed through that boy.
Not intentional on his part.
Sure.
He didn't know who it was.
Sure. But at the end of the day, that is what happened, and Jonas is pissed. Catherine, surprisingly, hatches a plan to stand in Elena's place so that when Jonas attacks, she can vamp out as a surprise and kill him. Then she and Elena have this little face-to-face where she says, this doesn't change things. And Catherine says, yeah, well, I don't like you either. But I'm not a threat to you, so don't worry your pretty little head about me for now.
I think it's because they're like, Jenna's gonna be home soon. You need to get Catherine out of here. And Catherine's like, am I not even gonna get a thank you? And I'm like, Catherine, where you killed Caroline?
In what world do you deserve a thank you, Catherine?
You got Jenna to stab herself. Like, why would
you've just started to balance the scales. You may not care about these scales, and that's fine. But like in the opinions of these characters, you've barely put a foot on the scale. But yeah, there is an uneasy alliance to sort of accept that like, okay, Catherine's helping. Next episode, Miss Isabel Fleming shows up, stunning both Jenna and Elena, because as far as Jenna's concerned, Rick's ex-wife is very much dead.
And Rick has recently like categorically said that. He's like, we will talk about Isabel, I'll tell you everything. Because the thing is, Rick, out of respect for Elena, is waiting for Elena to have this conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to out your whole vampire life and the Gilbert history to your aunt without your say-so. He even says, I can't date Jenna and lie to her. So until you tell the truth, I'm not going to pursue this relationship that I very much want to be in. But he does tell Jenna that what I can tell you is that Isabel is dead. And I'm like,
yeah,
a technicality, Rick. I don't know why you had to say it like that.
And it's like, for her framework of reference, this will be bad. Like, this is a terrible thing to tell her. The least you could tell her is, like, she's in my past. She comes in like Addison Montgomery Shepherd saying, so you're the bitch that's dating my husband.
And she's so messy. I'm like, John has been petty since he showed back up. He's like, I'm not even interested in Jenna. And Alaric is no longer with Isabel or interested in Isabel. But there's still enough jealousy there because how dare you date my ex? And how dare your ex be the woman that I still hold a torch for? So I'm going to sow all these seeds of doubt.
How dare you date my other ex? Because I think there's a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he just doesn't trust Rick. I guess because Rick is allied with Damon, right? And he's like, well, I hate all vampires except the girl I hold a torch for. But he's like,
it's so petty because it's like, why do you care that Rick is dating
Jenna?
You don't want Jenna anymore. You're still in love with this evil vampire who you've convinced yourself has like a speck of goodness in her concerning Elena. And then Isabel shows up making sure that she's like, hi, my name is Isabel. She's like, yeah, John probably told me what was going on. I'm going to make sure she knows exactly who I am.
You're dating my husband. Oh, that's
I'm
cute.
Isabel. I'm Elena's mother. And then she sees Elena in the background and she's like, hi, Elena, may I come in just to make sure that...
Hi, Elena, nice to see you again.
Just so you know, Elena has met me before.
Then Jenna turns and goes, oh, I see. So not only was my boyfriend lying to me, you were lying to me about finding your biological mother. Then she's like, Jenna, may I come in? And Elena's like, no, do not invite her in, and slams the door on her. Of course, this messes up Jenna and Elena. Elena calls Rick over. They both try to explain. Jenna is not having it. And she says, I'm going to go stay at campus. There's food in the fridge. There's a takeout menu on the thing. You know the numbers. I've put in some money so you all can order. If there's any emergency, you can call A, B, and C. I'm out.
There's some other founding family thing that she needs to take care of, like the historical society that Miranda was running. She's like, yeah, they'll be here for your mother's blah, blah, blah. And then she leaves. And I'm like, damn.
Damn. And you know what? Fair, because again, she learns that, oh, I'm the only fool in this situation. You knew, Rick knew, John knew, Jeremy knew, so I'm the idiot. So I guess I should just go, hey? So she doesn't know any vampire shit's going on. She doesn't know there's danger. So she leaves.
I'm like, Jenna, I get that you're hurting and you feel like you've been played for a fool, but also you just told Elena that she was adopted the other day when she found out. So maybe like a little bit of like leniency.
She's having her first like proper emotional moment. She's in her 20s. I think she's allowed. She's
That's
a millennial
fair.
in her 20s.
That's fair.
And she's removing herself from the situation. And I get her. John creeps out from the kitchen and is like, you know what?
Audacity of John.
He's like, she's probably safer not here, what with everything going on. But maybe if Rick was a little more honest with her, this wouldn't have happened. And Rick immediately turns around and clocks him with the right hook. One time. One time and he's out. And then he shakes out his hand and says, sorry, Elena, leaves the house.
And when John gets back up, Elena's like, you realize this is all your fault, right? And even John is like, yeah. Like he nods and he's like, yeah, that's on me.
It's so good. It's so good. I really like Rick. I wish his actor wasn't the worst spawn of Satan. I really like Rick.
You should have associated him more with his Legally Blonde character than his Vampire Diaries character.
John brings Elena and Stefan down to Isabel, who is invited into the house now. Into Elena's house.
Oh, yes! Because he sort of owns the house as well, so he can just invite people in.
Yeah.
It's so shitty. It's like, we're not going to let this dangerous woman in. We don't trust her. And then we come home one day and John's like, I've invited her in because I've taken it upon myself.
I've decided for your sake that because I trust her, I'm going to put her in your house. Hypocrite of the highest order.
Hypocrite.
In any case, Isabel shares that she's been trying to find Klaus, but has not succeeded. She says she's gotten a safe house for Elena that only Elena will have access to, because apparently vampires are just walking in here. Because the rumors, what she has learned is that the rumors of the doppelganger have spread. And so vampires will be coming to offer her to Klaus.
Which I'm like, how are these rumors spreading? Because we saw it back with like Rose and Slater, that those vampires showed up after Slater had already died. And then Elijah had to kill them. And he was like, are you the only ones who know? Great, you're dead, I'm gonna leave. And Elena and Rose are like, huh? That's strange. It's like, how is this information being disseminated that people now know that the doppelganger is alive and in Mystic Falls? Like, are you all just working with witches who are like scrying on this town?
So there's a number of avenues. I mean, firstly, vampires talk, right? As it turns out, some vampires will always run into a vampire that either the Salvatores or whichever original knows from however many decades or centuries ago. So
but have they seen Elena? Because they have to know Elena exists and have seen her face in order to know that the doppelganger is here in Mystic Falls.
If they all supposedly know about the curse, right? The sun and moon curse, which is totally real, then they know a doppelganger exists. Anyone invested in the curse, because the originals were seeding this stuff in various cultures, they've said. A lot of people, assumedly, are aware of the legend or the myth at the very least. If enough people believe that the curse can be broken, they would know about the doppelganger. And if they know Klaus is on the move, and if they've heard whispers of like, oh, Catherine has been in places, or whispers of, oh, these vampires who I knew went to Mystic Falls and never returned, what were they doing? Get the skinny from their friends. And it's like, oh yeah, that idiot was going after a so-called doppelganger, but like, I didn't believe it. But if I believe it, me who's asking this dead vampire's friend, I'm going to Mystic Falls. There's a lot of... And then, of course, witches.
It seemed... Yeah, the witches I get. It seemed like in the vampire community, it was supposed to be this big secret that Catherine Pierce had a child. And that most people just knew that, oh, she was the last doppelganger. She died without issue, as they say.
Yeah.
Without having any kids. And therefore, the doppelganger line had ended with her. And Klaus is just hunting her because he hates her. I thought it was meant to be this, like, the secret thing. Well, we'll get to it in season 3 where later on there's another character who's like, oh, I learned that Elena was the doppelganger and I knew people would be coming for her, so I got rid of this other vampire. And it's like, how were people all learning this when seemingly Catherine hadn't been to Mystic Falls?
I mean, Rose and Trevor knew somehow, so they must have found it out.
Oh, yeah, Rose and Trevor.
Yeah, they came up, Rose and Trevor came out of nowhere and found her. I assume through Slater, so it's like, Slater wasn't like an honorable dude. He was like info to the highest bidder. So assumedly a number of people are aware of what's going on. Like, it's not inconceivable to me that...
Oh, you know what it could have been? Actually, I'm being stupid.
Okay.
I forget that some of the tomb vampires were smart enough to leave town.
Yes.
Before they were killed by the Gilbert device or staked by John Gilbert personally.
And they know Elena's here.
Yeah. So that's fair. That's
Easy
fair.
spread. And also, none of this matters because the safe house thing is a lie.
Yeah, she's like, it's a safe house. It's in your name. No vampire can enter unless you want them to. And I'm like, Isabel, in what universe do you think these people would believe anything you say?
I mean, John has made clear that he wants to protect Elena, right? And I assume they believe him on some level. She's completely fooled John. So from their end, I guess the hope is that because they believe John wants to protect Elena and trusts Isabel, that then they will trust that what she's saying is true.
And it's like, Isabel, we're not your high school boyfriend who still isn't over you for whatever reason.
Of course not.
You're not stupid.
And as it turns out, Elena refuses the safe house situation and says, get out of my life. I don't care about you because you've said you don't care about me. Even though at this point, Isabel is saying, you're my daughter and I want to protect you. So, but boy, you can't wolf. No, that's not the right reference.
Which we, the audience, know that she has said on camera to John without Elena and them seeing, being like, oh, we do care about her. She's our daughter. Let's keep her out of all this vampire stuff.
Stefan and Elena, once again in a strat sesh, now with Damon, and the Salvatores decide to be on bodyguard duty at all times. But they hide from Catherine that Damon knows where the 100 Dead Witches are buried and takes Bonnie there. This is when they're going to go to the 100 Dead Witches and find some other way to kill Klaus, is the plan. Elena does go to the Historical Society to accept a check for her mother's foundation.
That was what Jenna had told her to do.
Right.
Before she left.
At that event, Isabel drops John down the stairs as a distraction. And then Catherine snatches Elena and takes her place.
Oh, yeah, I think she's like, that's a cute outfit. Mind if I borrow it?
Yeah. And then yank, because Isabel and Catherine have linked up elsewhere and made this plan. Isabel's confessed that actually my plan is to hand her over to Klaus so that the two of us can skedaddle and go live our lives free of any drama. And Catherine's been like, yeah, obviously, I'm going to do that. I don't care about these yahoos. Egg on Catherine's face, Isabel double crosses her and hands her and the Moonstone to Maddox, Klaus's little white witch. At this point, Isabel, she's on the phone with Catherine where Maddox comes over and snatches them. And then she's driving Elena elsewhere. Elena wakes up either in the front seat or the back seat. It might be the back seat. She wakes up and she figures out that Isabel did find Klaus, but he's compelled her now. Isabel takes her to the graveyard where her family put up a stone for her. It's up there. It says Isabel Fleming. But of course, they buried an empty coffin because she was never found. And she tells Elena that she believes that the human part of her is buried here. The part that dreamed of meeting her daughter. Unfortunately, Elena had to meet the other part that would betray her own flesh and blood. Which is this really, unexpectedly tragic moment. The whole time you've seen Isabel on this show, she's just been so cold and so stonewalled to Elena. And then she gets a call from Maddox saying that her part is done in all of this. And she's like, oh, I'm finally free? Okay, thank you. She closes the phone and she tells Elena that she's sorry that she was such a disappointment. Pulls off her necklace, her daylight necklace, and throws it aside and catches a light in the bright sunlight and screams as she goes out in flames. And Elena has to just stand there and watch in horror as her biological mother dies in front of her.
It is like, she was, on that phone call, she was told you can let Elena go, which surprised even her. And I'm like, so with that instruction, you could have vamp sped away, taken off your necklace and burned to a crisp somewhere outside of your bio daughter's field of vision so you didn't have to re-traumatize her.
I assume the original compulsion, because Maddox is not compelling her over the phone, right?
Yeah.
My part is done in all of this. Yes, you're done in this. Then was the activation in the compulsion to be like, once your part is done on this, you must then kill yourself. If the rules of compulsion are to be followed exactly so, then maybe she couldn't have vamp sped away.
I mean, we've seen you can hold off a compelled instruction for a while if you have the willpower.
We've only seen one person do that.
Okay. The greatest of all of them.
The greatest of all of them. That's why it was the only person who could do that. And we will talk about that today.
I love the symmetry, though, of Isabel dying right next to her empty grave.
Yeah, it's like finally something to fill space. I'll just collapse on top of it here, and it'll be all good. Hopefully not too strong of a wind, you know, that just scatters me elsewhere. I'd really like to kind of sink in here.
Ashes to ashes, indeed.
Desiccated dust. Elena has to just take that and put it in her satchel as she goes home.
How does she even get home? Because presumably this grave is not in Mystic Falls, because Isabel was not from Mystic Falls.
I guess she takes Isabel's car and drives home. Like her mother, she drives a big ol' SUV, so she would have no problem handling that car. She gets home. They all try to figure out why they wouldn't snatch Elena, Klaus, and his many goons when they had the chance. Unable to figure that out, they just make the decision, okay, we're gonna sign over Chez Salvatore to Elena. Because the Salvatore house, everyone who owned it at some point is dead. That's why everyone can just come into the Salvatore house and attack when they want to. But if the deed is now signed to Elena's name, she will be the only one who can control who can come in and out.
Ah, yes. I think they say Isabel had the right idea with the whole safe house thing, even though we didn't trust her.
Yeah, that was the only problem with the plan, it turns out.
I think they do say that, the reason why Klaus hasn't taken her is because he knows he doesn't have to. Like, she's not going to run. She's very clearly too scared that he'd butcher everyone she loves. So she's going to stay right here and he'll get to her when he needs her. Once they know that Catherine has been taken, I love that they fully assume that she's dead. Klaus definitely killed her.
Well, Catherine's gone. She screwed us over though, so no big loss. So John wakes up because when Isabel shoved him down the stairs, he died. So
of course, it's Mystic Falls.
He wakes up because of the Gilbert ring. Damon grabs him, but Elena tells him to let him go because they need to talk. She asks John why he put his trust in Isabel, if he thought she was this uncaring and selfish person, and he says he was there when she gave birth to Elena and saw how heartbroken Isabel was to give her up. And she was the first girl he ever loved. He's human. What are you gonna do? He claims.
Funny because he told Pearl, who was still, in her feelings about Jonathan Gilbert the Elder's betrayal in 1864. He tells her, you vampires, you're so emotional. And I'm like, well.
Interesting you say that, Jonathan Gilbert. Give it a season. But he tells Elena at this point the only thing he wants to do is take care of her. And so he promises to do whatever Elena asks of him, even if that means leaving, if she feels safer that way. And she tells him he sucks and he ruins everything. But he's the only parent she has left. So maybe she can learn not to hate him. That's a nice little moment also. It's not ideal, but it is real. And that's where they take off from there in a sort of new chapter between Elena and John. In the next episode is when Elena officially signs the deed, but she tells them that she is not going to be a prisoner. She's going to live her life until Klaus so chooses to show his face. So she's like, okay, it's a safe house, but I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna go see my friends. What they don't know is that Klaus's face right now is Rick's face because the White Witch has jumped Klaus into his body.
The White Witch? Just letting you know, White Witch is a term in like fantasy and
not
folklore.
In this world, so you know what I mean when I'm talking about the
In this world, I guess it's just that Maddox is the first witch we see who isn't African American.
Title he holds with honor. Well done, Maddox. The first one to ruin my theories.
Ruin your theories that all witches were black?
Yeah, we talked about this in the Gilbert Journal
Yeah.
of Witchcraft, that like he was the first one and he kind of throws a wrench in the works of like Esther was the first one and that's when it turned.
It certainly seemed that way, that they were going for like, I don't know, witchcraft's like is this out of Africa thing and that's why all the witches are black and you need to have black ancestry to be a witch. And then suddenly Maddox shows up and it's like, nope, it's just for some reason most of the witches living in and around Virginia are African American, I guess.
Happen to be black. I mean, as it turns out, this is the strange thing is that like I've learned that the South has more black people than you would think, even though a lot of them are red states. And it kind of makes sense, right? Is that like that was where slavery continued to happen even beyond the abolishment and the changing attitudes on enslavement.
Yeah.
And so a lot of black people would have just sort of left their enslavement or escaped their enslavement and set up in the South. But it is still strange that like there's not that many black people in Mystic Falls, let alone the cast. So it is notable when it's like, oh, the only black person in the supernatural world, the only black people in the supernatural world are the witches, and they're all black.
Yeah.
You know, it raises questions. Also, Maddox could very easily have black ancestry, but we won't get into that. So, that
What was that
seem
thing?
like something.
People from Louisiana will understand. He's Creole.
He's Creole. He's Creole. You know, what
I've
are you
got
going to
uncles
do?
who look like this.
What are you gonna do? That's just how it is. Elena arrives at the cafeteria at school with Bonnie and Jeremy. They are ending a tense conversation, which secretly is about Bonnie possibly going to die about this whole 100 Dead Witches magic thing. This random girlie shows up, and she plays Joey in Haunting of Hill House, for those of you that have seen the Mike Flanagan verse. She comes over and says, oh, there's a guy who wants Elena to meet him at the dance, to save him a dance tonight. He's so hot. His name is Klaus. And everyone's like, whoa.
It's so... Short of there being like a scare chord, it's such a horror movie thing. It's like, oh shit, Klaus is here, and they're all horrified.
Yeah, Klaus has infiltrated not just the town, but our school. This is bad. They're like, what does he look like? She's like, I don't really know. And they're like, yeah, compelled. This is Klaus. Oh no.
Yeah, because she's like, I don't know, but I just know he was really hot. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not mind control.
1, 2, you technically haven't seen Klaus's face, so did Klaus compel you to believe that of Rick? Many questions. What's the implication here?
I guess Klaus, vain as he is, just said, go tell this girl that Klaus is really hot and wants to dance with her. And you have no memory of me being the person who told you.
You just know this for a fact. It's crazy how vain Klaus is when Matt Davis is playing him. I don't know what... I guess they hadn't fully codified Klaus until season 3, right? But every time we see Klaus in this era of him possessing Rick's body, he's so vain. The way he does his villain act is so camp. It's not like Klaus, who's like... Klaus is a character, right? But he's very terrifying. When Rick is playing him, it's like there is a threat there. But it's so... He's having so much fun being in someone else's body. I don't know
Maybe
why.
that's it. He's like, I like being in this 6'3".
Yeah, I
high
get to
school
play this
teacher's
man
body.
who's twice as tall as I am, you know?
Because I think it's in that era where Damon, who isn't aware, surprisingly, but Damon is like throwing shade at Klaus while speaking to who he thinks is Rick.
Yes!
And he's like, nah, I think Klaus is too over the top, and he's this and he's that. He's not that interesting. He's not as cool as he thinks he is. And Rick is standing like Alaric's face with Klaus's body, and it's like,
So
I don't think that. Like, I think he's probably pretty cool and intimidating. And
Yeah!
Damon is like,
He's
nah,
actually
I'm not impressed.
really awesome.
Oh yeah, I think it's after the scene. It's that Damon goes to tell Rick what has happened,
Yes.
and Rick is like, "Oh yeah, Klaus is so creepy, like leaving this message to a compelled girl that he's here. Isn't it scary?" And then Damon's like, "Nah, I think he's trying too hard. He's clearly trying to get under our skin. It's not that cool. I used to be the bad guy. I was scarier than this."
So good. It's so random and it's so funny. I love
Klaus's
it.
reaction with Rick's face is almost like, "Okay, well, I thought I
Well,
was pretty
screw you too. Right? Guess I'm not cool enough for your standards, Damon freaking Salvatore. Like, I can't.
Oh, also, I think earlier in the episode, Klaus Rick has already shown up in class, like talking to Elena and the students. Like he leaves Catherine, who is alive, at Rick's apartment. It's like, I'm going to go lay eyes on my doppelganger. Mine as in she's my property, not as in she's like physically like me.
Yes.
And he shows up at school. He's trying to... It's just funny because it's like Elena and Catherine are each other's doppelgangers, but Klaus will often talk about Elena as my doppelganger. Like he owns her.
As one of my objects. Yeah, later on it'll be
Yeah.
like, I'm leaving town, so I'm just here to pick up like my flashlight, my spare tire, my doppelganger. Yeah, it's just how he rolls.
He's like in class, like being like, okay, I gotta be a history teacher now. Let me try and use my 1,000 years of knowledge. And he's like, the 60s.
The 60s.
What happened? Let's see. The Beatles, that was cool. He's like, we landed on the moon, I guess. There was Watergate. And then Elena's like, Watergate was the 50s, Rick. I mean, Mr. Saltzman. And I'm like,
I mean, Mr.
yeah.
Saltzman.
Like, yeah, you do mean Mr. Saltzman. You're in
crazy
school.
Yeah, like, I get you guys are friends now, but like, show some decorum in a school environment. Honestly, the instinctual thought, first thought, worst thought, as you know, but like the instinctual thought that I had to kick away was like, the other kids probably think she's like dating him.
Yeah, you know,
The
this
other
is the
kids
Pretty
probably
Little Liars
think
era. They're
she's
probably like,
sleeping her way to a good history grade.
they'd be like, there's been rumors that, you know, Mr. Saltzman's often at the Gilbert home. Like, you know, we see him there a lot.
Like, they don't know who Jenna is, but they know where Elena lives, and it's like, what's going on there? Elena and Bonnie go back to Chez Salvatore and they strategize with the boys. That's when they call Rick over. So, of course, Klaus learns their whole strategy. They plan to lure him out at the dance for Bonnie to kill. But for Elena, once again, the weight of the threat has become palpable. Even though she's like been like, okay, we'll find a way to save me. It's like, now Klaus is here. Before we found that way, now it's getting real dangerous. Cut to the dance. Dedicated to the One I Love by the Mamas and Papas is playing in the background. I don't know if they do the original, but it's the most popular version, and it's really good. Just as the same girlie from earlier who told them Klaus wants a dance is announcing a special shout out from Klaus to Elena. Stefan and Elena are dancing. She asks him to go catch up Caroline, so he tags her off to Damon. Because Caroline has not been aware of all the stuff that's going on yet. She was planning the dance because she's a busy woman.
Also, she's got her Matt drama that is unfolding on her side. Always the B plot, Caroline and Matt and Tyler.
Always the B plot. But you know what? They dominate that B plot. It is usually them. So good for them. So he tags her off to Damon. Damon tries to cheer her up while they're dancing, which is nice. And he convinces her that they're going to win tonight. Meanwhile, Jeremy's telling Stefan about Bonnie's suicide mission, that she's channeling this 100 Dead Witches magic to kill Klaus, but it will probably kill her in the process. Stefan, of course, tells Elena because they did make an agreement. No secrets, no hidden agendas. Elena confronts Bonnie about it because she won't accept Bonnie dying for her. And Bonnie says, if the roles were reversed and buttered and baked at 350, what would you do? Because she knows Elena would do exactly that. Rick, or rather Klaus, comes over and says that Klaus has Jeremy. He's gone. This is a problem. We need to go after him. And gets Elena and Bonnie to come with him, lures them into a trap. Bonnie's already clocking it the minute they step out into the hallway and is like, something does not feel right here. And asks, so where is he keeping Jeremy? He's like, a little further. And it's like, no. No. He does then reveal himself and that he's here to kill Bonnie because she's their big gambit. Bonnie easily knocks him around with her magic. Unfortunately, he is actively being protected by Maddox from somewhere else. Maddox is remotely doing some sort of protection spell on him. Almost similar to the one she will do on Shane later in season 4, except using expression. So even though she's knocking him around in a way that would destroy the human body that he's possessing, he's like fine. He's got a couple of scratches. Elena goes to go fetch Stefan, comes back to find Bonnie is in fact following through. She's doing this huge magical feat. Lights are exploding everywhere. Klaus is cowered over, like screaming in pain. Bonnie turns to look at her with this really morose, dramatic look, and the slow music is playing, and it feels like the final moment.
She's bleeding out of her nose.
Elena is watching her best friend die, as she feared, in the way of Klaus's plans to come get her. She dies. Klaus doesn't, because again, he was being protected, and he walks off being like, haha, I'll see you at the sacrifice, bitch. And he leaves. And Elena is so broken by this moment, despite the fact that Damon later fesses up that this was all a trick. He and Bonnie and Jeremy orchestrated it to fool Klaus into thinking Bonnie had died. She did a spell to make it look like she'd like snapped her back and fallen down and hit her head and died and wasted like all the magic. In the conversation where Damon tells her that, and she's asserting that like the plan is still for Bonnie to do the thing, to lure Klaus in and then kill him with the magic, but now she has less magic than she did before. And Damon says the notorious, I will gladly let Bonnie die if it means saving you. So You know, a romantic win, I suppose, for the Elena Stearns in some way that has nothing to do with me.
I guess with that line in mind, the point we get to where Kaya's like, haha, Bonnie has to die for Elena to wake up, and Damon decides, at least in that finale, no, I'm not going to do that. Screw you. I guess that's like growth for the Bayman friendship.
Is that growth? All right.
I mean, he does consider letting her get hit by a car in the next season, but
so
he saves her.
He stops, I guess. So, you know, it's all right. None of my business. That's all I'll say.
I'm just saying, season 2 Damon would have decapitated Bonnie right after decapitating Kai if it meant waking Elena up. And she wasn't even his girlfriend yet.
Sure, growth. We'll give it to him. Again, people are free to read that as they wish. But again, I feel like it's a fundamental misunderstanding of Elena.
Yes. Elena, the loving martyr who it's repeatedly said she feels more than any of them, which, I know, debatable, but whatever. In universe, she feels, in the script, she feels more than any of them. She loves her friends. She would gladly sacrifice herself like Jesus on the cross for everyone. But somehow the appeal for some fans is that, yeah, in all of that, a man who loves you enough to disregard your wishes and your personality and say, I would burn the world just to save you, is so romantic. And I'm like,
including the people you love.
if that's what you like, okay.
That's the thing. I can make myself be like, okay, fine, I'll burn the world. It's just us, babe. But it's like, I will also kill your friends who you care about. It's like, I don't know, guys. I don't know. From this, Elena goes, okay, then I can't let any of this proceed. Like, I know Bonnie's alive now, but this plan's still gonna go forward. So I'm gonna go downstairs in my new safe house of Shea Salvatore into the cellar, and I'm going to remove the dagger from Elijah's chest and make a Green New Deal.
Bold move for someone who has betrayed this guy once, but whose group has betrayed him twice.
So bold. So bold. This is my favorite, like, interaction / episode / like Elena Gambit. Like you say, after her betraying him, after her friends betraying him multiple times, she goes, I have a better shot with this than with the other plan where people will die in my place. She frees Elijah. He wakes up with a start, freaking out. Base instinct sees her and is like, Katerina! And he's having flashbacks to, like, Catherine when he knew her in 16th century England? Something like that.
15th? It was the 1400s,
15th.
So 15th century.
Did she run straight to England? Did she meet them right after? Oh, it was during.
Yeah.
It was when she knew Rose.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
human life. She was banished for having a child out of
Yes.
wedlock, went to England. I guess she met Trevor first because Trevor presents her to Elijah and Klaus.
Yes, Trevor was Elijah's little squire. So he's flashing back to her back in that time, and then back to President Elena's like, no, it's me, it's Elena. And he's like, you? And she's like, hold on, before you decide to kill me. Quiet, there are people upstairs. And he has the wherewithal to be like, okay, starts to wake up, immediately starts getting, like, yanked in different directions, looking like he's in pain. She's like, what the hell's going on? And he's like, I can't be in this house. And then she goes, oh, because we signed over the deed, you're not invited in. It's a really cool effect. He gets yanked, like, at vampire speed and hits the wall. Does that 3 times, and it's like, as he's trying to leave, he keeps knocking until he gets out the front door. Elena runs out and then sees him sort of cowed over on the stoop. His suit is in tatters. He's still a little bit gray. It's not a great look for Elijah, unfortunately. But she stays on the inside while he's outside, and she tells him, I want to make a new deal. And he's like, how could I possibly trust you? And she takes out the dagger and hands it to him. Because again, my girl knows how to wheel and deal. She said, this is the only thing I have against you, and I'm putting it in your hands, and I will come with you. Let's go and talk. I am fully at your mercy. And they indeed go and talk. They're in her SUV. She's driving him around while he's drinking from a blood bag that I guess she's fished from Stefan's stash. He's like sipping away like he's drinking a little Capri Sun. She gets a call from Stefan, who's like, where have you been? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm with Elijah. And they're like, what? And she's like, don't worry about it. I've got it covered. I'm in charge of the situation like we agreed. And I trust Elijah. Damon's like, you're an idiot from the background. And she's like, take care of him, please. You know I know how to do this. And Elijah's a man of his word. So give me the day to talk to him. Stefan's like, God damn if you're right. All right, you go sort it out. I'll take care of Damon. Closes the call.
The respect that Stefan has for Elena, even when he disagrees
Immense.
with
Immense.
her seeming lack of self-preservation.
That is, the keyword is seeming, right? Because it's like, from the outside, it always looks like she's just hurling herself into danger, but she's calculating. She's always doing the math of like, how much danger am I actually in here? What is the risk reward of taking this path? And what is the alternative? And he at least respects her and that process, because very often it gets them results. He tells Damon even that like, she knows what she's doing. She might actually be able to get Elijah back on our side. Damon thinks he's an idiot. Stefan tells him to back off, because this is Elena's decision. It's Elena's life. Damon's like, that makes no sense to me. So Elijah and Elena go to Carol Lockwood's house, where he goes to get some clothes. And then they head out while Elena catches him up on everything that's happened. He informs her Klaus is in fact his brother, because they were unaware of that fact. They assumed the originals were a group, and he shares that they are a family, and that only wood from the white oak tree can kill them. The sun and moon curse that they believed was real is fake.
Gasp!
And Elena gets another call from Stefan about Klaus coming to her house as Rick, because he's still in Rick's body. Again, nobody's told Jenna what's happening. So Jenna has come back from campus to her own home and finds Rick there. So they've called up Jenna to be like, Jenna, whatever you do, don't come home. And she's like, I'm already home. They're like, don't let Rick into the house. He's already here. So it's like, now what? Stefan calls Elena to tell her all this. And she tells Elijah, I've got to run home. My aunt's in danger. And Elijah's like, and I must just trust that you're going to come back. And she's like, you're going to have to. I have no interest in betraying you, but I need to go make sure my family's safe. And he's like, all right, fine. Go ahead. She goes home, finds a post-scuffle of Stefan and Klaus Rick, with Jenna looking horrified because she now knows that vampires exist. She saw Rick acting really weird, talking about a lot of weird stuff, and then Stefan moved faster than is humanly possible and turned to tell her to run with like bulging veins in his face and darkly colored eyes. So she's in shock. Elena then has to tell her that yes, vampires are real, the supernatural exists. I'm sorry that you had to find out like this. And also, I can't really run you through the initiation right now because I left a 1,000-year-old vampire waiting for me and I have to go back. Stefan, please watch over her. I'm going back to Elijah. Stefan's like, what? And Elena's like, I promised him I'm this close to getting some very critical information. He's like, okay, go ahead. Damon's like, no, it's not going to happen. And threatens physical violence again to keep her here. Stefan has to jump and physically move him out of the way for Elena to go. She does go back to Elijah, who is surprised to see her back. And he continues to tell her more about Klaus being not just a vampire, but also a werewolf, a product of infidelity, and tells her that the curse that actually exists is the one that suppresses his werewolf side. Tells her that the daggers won't work on him, which you can go to the Gilbert Journal. What Gilbert Journal were we talking about this, or was this the Tyler episode?
It was either the Tyler episode or the Werewolf Gilbert Journal, where we were like, silver seems to have no effect, negative or positive, on werewolves in this world.
But then that doesn't track with, like, what Elijah says, which is when a werewolf is stabbed with silver, it heals.
It's an ambiguous sentence, because it could just be saying, when a werewolf is injured in a non-lethal way, the werewolf heals, or the wound is healed.
Right, but it's like, what does that have to do with the dagger?
Yeah, it's phrased in a way that would make you think that, oh, silver helps them heal. Like, for a long time, if you were on the wiki or in fan spaces, the fans believe that, oh, silver hitting a werewolf's bloodstream will have the opposite effect on its regeneration that wood would have on a vampire's bloodstream. Then it turned out none of that was true.
None of that is true, but like, alternatively, is it the silver of the dagger that's keeping the originals down? Which we know is not true. It's the white oak ash. So why would this have no effect on Klaus?
Well, I guess it's that specific alchemical bond. That's what it said in the Gilbert journal. Like this unique alchemical bond is what will take an original down. And it's like, okay, and whoever did this alchemy unfortunately either didn't know or didn't care about the nature of werewolves and their relationship with silver. We later on learn that if it's a different substance, the dagger then follows different rules. But it's never explained why the silver affects werewolves in the way that it does.
Why it would not affect... Why? Because it doesn't follow a myth that we believe to be true in human society. It therefore doesn't hurt them at all.
Exactly. That's the most we
the
get.
logic doesn't work. But alas, for some reason they're immune to silver-based magic. So he's telling her that like the dagger won't work on him. A witch channeling enough power is the only way, and he has now learned that he has lost both his witches. She tells him, we've got Bonnie, and she's channeling 100 dead witches right now. And he tells her, I've got a way to protect the doppelganger from death in the sacrifice. And the two of them are like, why isn't it just us making plans in this show? Everyone else is such like a hindrance. We always know what's going on. They come back to Chez Salvatore, having made a new deal. They find the Salvatores fighting petty battles. As soon as Elena comes back, Stefan's like, ma'am, my hands are behind my back. I wasn't fighting, I promise. Elijah's like, all right, we've got a deal. I just have one thing to ask of the two of you before we agree fully. And it's to apologize for killing me. Stefan's like, small thing to do. I'm sorry for my part I played in having you daggered. Damon, being the loser he is, tells them all to go to hell. But he comes right back in the next episode, so I don't know what that high horse is about. Another strategy session starts in the next episode with Elena and Elijah. Damon comes in and gate crashes. Elijah and Elena are talking about why she's willing to take the risk of this elixir that he's brought in that will apparently protect her from death in the sacrifice. He had intended it for Catherine, but Catherine made her own plan, so he's just had this with him. Rick comes back, no longer possessed.
At this point, they have explained everything to Jenna.
Yes. Jenna's in the room. Jenna's aware of what's happening. She lets Rick back into the house.
She was pointing a crossbow at Rick when he was on the doorstep
because
she thought he was still Klaus.
Quick on the uptake. Good for you, Jenna. So Damon is refusing any sort of other plan that isn't from him. And when Elena comes to be like, this can work, I need you to trust me on this, he goes, no, I've got to make sure that my needs are met. Damon, of course, decides to force feed Elena his blood so that she will come back a vampire if she dies in the sacrifice. She's protesting the whole time he does it. She's not strong enough to stop him because she's human. Stefan shows up after seeing that and immediately starts beating him up. Damon, don't know where he gets the legs, impales Stefan with a piece of a chair that breaks, and then heads off. He's like, oh, tell me you hate me, blah, blah, blah. Stefan recovers and asks Elena to go with him on a walk to talk about what they have been putting off for some time now. Because this is the day of the sacrifice, I believe. I think it's like the morning of. So it's like the vampire blood will not leave her system before Klaus kills her. So she is very likely to become a vampire.
Yes, that's why Rick is let go. He's sent to them to deliver the message of the sacrifice happens tonight because it's the full moon.
Full moon, baby, celestial
Which I'm
event.
like, weird that Elijah didn't tell them that this would be happening on a full moon, but at least they could predict when Klaus might want to do this.
I mean, he wanted the power in the situation, ultimately. And he had it. He said, I'll let you know when you need to know. But for now, don't worry, you're safe.
Has Elijah at this point told them that he plans to let Bonnie, like, do 90% of the work and then kill Klaus, like, with the finishing blow so that Bonnie doesn't have to die?
Yes, that is the plan. So the two of them head off. They go on, like, a hike, which is a crazy thing to do on the day your girlfriend's about to die, but at least am I.
Cape Town vibes.
Truly. He offers to be her vampire almanac in a different way from Slater. And she asks him about what the best and worst parts are about being a vampire. And he gives his very honest answers of how your emotions are heightened, so you love more powerfully, you feel everything more fully, you experience the world in a way that you can never experience as a human. But the lows are low. When they get to the top of the mountain that they're climbing, Stefan tells her that he knows she's thought about it before. He's thought about it 100 times, and if it was his choice, he'd want to be with her forever. He just never brought it up because if it was an option for Elena, then she would have brought it up. And he would be selfish to say, I want you to be a vampire with me forever. And so finally, at Stefan's reassurance that she can say it out loud, it won't hurt him. Well, it will hurt him, but it'll be fine. Elena confesses that she does not want to become a vampire. There's so much of her human life that she has plans to experience. She doesn't know what she wants for her future, but she wants to grow up and have those experiences and live long enough to make mistakes and have fun, maybe get married, maybe have children, who knows? She doesn't want to lose that opportunity.
She's a 17-year-old girl who says, I never wanted to be a vampire. And I'm like, in this moment, you have truly made yourself the antithesis of Bella Swan, your counterpart. Because Bella finds out vampires exist, falls in love with Edward really quickly. It's fine. She's 17. I can believe a 17-year-old falls in love that fast. And is immediately like, oh, this is what I want. I want to be a vampire forever. This is the best thing that can happen.
I've never felt right in my human life. I've always felt out of step. This is the thing that makes the most sense. It's like, all right, I can't say anything to that.
Screw my mother, screw my dad.
Who are both very much alive.
Screw the people who think they're my friends. They're not my friends. Screw Jacob and the fact that our friendship would end the minute I became a vampire.
By a long-standing treaty. Screw all of that. My loving and supporting system of loved ones. I need to be a vampire. And Elena goes, I've accepted that you're a vampire. I've embraced that my life is now about the supernatural because it was just destined to be so. But I want to stay human. It is a very interesting and respectable take of the argument can be made that you are now continuously in danger of the supernatural, and in a pragmatic way it would be better for you to be a vampire because you can protect yourself. But they do talk about being a vampire isn't always all it's cracked up to be. A lot of vampires struggle with living normal lives. Just because she's surrounded by Damon, who doesn't care, Stefan, who spends most of his energy trying to keep normal, and Caroline, who's just perfect at it. It's no one's having a scenario where it's I'm well-adjusted normal vampire. It's you have to be type A perfectionist and thrive as a vampire to really be good at it. And there's not a lot of normal references. So I get it. That episode ends with Klaus coming to take Elena for the sacrifice. Stefan is for a moment being no, I can't let you go with him. And she says, it's okay, close your eyes. And she kisses him and she disappears. And when he opens his eyes, both Klaus, the real Klaus now, and Elena are gone.
Which I'm did he pick her up and vamp speed away?
Snatched her and ran so quick. Holds her over the shoulders, just tie up your hair a little bit. You don't want it whipping your face.
She's going to have bugs in her teeth as he races her over to the woods where the sacrifice is going to happen.
It's the night of the sacrifice, the last 2 episodes, or I guess the second last episode. Elena is out in the woods in a circle of fire that's been made by Greta, who makes 2 other circles to throw in Jules, the werewolf who is going to be sacrificed, and Jenna, who has been snatched and turned because Klaus had her and Jules as backups to Caroline and Tyler that were originally going to be for the spell.
And because Jenna has only been in the know for a little bit, thanks to the Mystic Falls gang, she was not prepared for doppelganger antics. So when she heard Elena on the phone, she fell for it.
Down to the last day getting screwed over by the fact that everyone is keeping her in the dark. Elena watches as Jenna, who is in transition, is forced to feed by Miss Greta herself and transitions fully into a vampire. She tries to keep Jenna on the level while she's desperately trying to figure a way out of this. She tries to turn her empathy guns on Greta. They do not work.
Greta cares so little. The first time she sees her, she's like, you're Greta, Luca's sister. He and your father have been looking for you. And then Greta's just they were wasting their time. I wasn't lost. And I was like, oop, okay.
Okay.
And then later on, she's like, Greta, please, witches are servants of nature. It's your duty to stop this from happening. And Greta's like, my only duty is to Klaus.
Which is why? What's Greta's story?
We'll never know.
Like, I understand that, like, she is an antagonist, but it's like, we're just supposed to accept at base that, like, she follows Klaus for whatever reason. Why?
Like Maddox, I guess.
Maddox makes sense. Maddox the type of guy to follow a guy like Klaus. That's like his idol.
Once we get to the spin-offs, we see that a lot of witches are friends with or indebted to vampires. We'd already seen it with Lucy and Catherine, where she was like, Catherine saved my life, so now I owe her. So
it's just Greta seemed so gung-ho about it. She seemed to be like free-willed. I just want to like watch the world burn. I want to watch Klaus rise to his... It's like, why? Why, girlie? This is bad for everyone. I guess as long as you're okay. Maybe black people can just suck sometimes.
Maybe she had her own demons and Klaus had convinced her that, the world doesn't like people like us. They try to, make us conform. I have to be a vampire, not a hybrid. You have to be a witch who doesn't do dark magic. Maybe it was something like that. Or maybe she was just in love with Klaus. Joseph Morgan is good looking. I can believe
That's
that
the
of this
worst
young,
option
impressionable
for me.
woman.
That is the worst of the options. I'd rather believe she has like some sort of ideological bent to it that like Klaus happens to align with and she got swayed by him.
Well, there we go.
Ugh. But we don't get anything about her. We have to fill in, I'd say, the gaps. But it's like, is it gaps when most of the picture is empty?
It's interesting that her father and brother fully believed that she had been kidnapped and Klaus was forcing certain witches to work for him and she was among those who had been coerced.
Right.
And then she turns up long after both of them have died trying to get her back. And it's like, no, she was here of her own free will the whole time. And it's like, did you guys try to text her or call her?
I mean, assumedly she didn't answer. Assumedly she just gone, I'm throwing my whole life away. I'm going no contact, but like not even for a good reason. Like, what are we doing?
Like, you could have at least let your family know that I've chosen to do this. Leave me alone. If you can't respect my decision, that's fine, but just go away. I'm here. Because they were like, oh, my sister, my daughter, we have to save her. She's been kidnapped. They were doing their own story in the background.
Yeah, maybe they were shitty to her and we have no context of what that home situation was. Maybe she left because it's like, maybe they didn't let her study because for whatever reason, their branch of magic, they're like, no, only the men. Which is like not an unusual thing that has happened in the past. And it's only more recently that it's like, oh, women and witchcraft because of the Salem witch trials and like puritanical, no, not Puritan. Yeah, puritanical religion and ideals. So I don't know. And we'll never know. And it's not important right now because it's not a Greta episode. Greta and Klaus begin the ritual, and he, as she's casting in the background, he starts by killing Jules, rips her heart out. Jenna clocks that, oh, I'm gonna die. And so she starts making apologies and saying her goodbyes to Elena. Elena's like, don't mind all that nonsense. You were perfect. Don't worry about it.
It's very sad, but it's sweet that they do have that moment. This relationship that has largely been in the background since the story got underway in season 1, where she's like, your parents died and I was told that I was going to be your guardian, me, a 20-something who hadn't finished getting my post-grad. And I was like, isn't there anyone else who can do this?
Someone more responsible, please. But she figured it out.
And Elena's like, no, nobody else could have done what you did. Like, the way you were there for me and Jeremy. You put your whole life on hold for us. You have been an amazing parent. And Jenna's like, no, Elena, look around you. All these vampires and death. I have failed you. I didn't even know what was going on in your life until like last week.
This is my monumental failure, and I need to salvage this somehow. I need to go out at least having tried to protect you.
Elena tells her that the reason you're feeling this way right now is because you're a vampire and your emotions are heightened, so all of the fear and the guilt is overwhelming you. But she adds that there are other advantages too. You're stronger and faster now, so you can fight back. But promise me that if you get the chance, you'll run.
Yeah. Stefan shows up because they've learned that Jenna's been snatched, and he is here to exchange himself for Jenna. But Klaus is like pretending to entertain the idea and then suddenly jabs him with a stake and is like, I've got other ideas for you, buddy. And it's like, what? But we'll deal with that another time. Jenna tries to go for Greta when she's freed.
Which her last act I love, because Elena does say you can fight back, but then her last thing is, please run if you get the chance. And Jenna's thing is, I'm not going to run. I'm going to stay and fight and try to protect my niece. this child in my care. Like, she could have vamp rushed into the forest. Klaus probably would have caught her, but she didn't even try. She was like, let me kill the witch so that the sacrifice can't happen if there's no spellcaster.
Again, knowing so little about whatever the hell is going on here, she's like, this is how I save you.
And I'm like, you see, if you had this woman in the loop, she could have been a valuable ally.
Day one. You would have had a real one on your side. Now look at you. Now look at you. She's dying in front of you and there's nothing you could do. Ugh.
Right before Klaus kills her after yanking her off Greta with ease, Elena tells her, flip the switch. You can turn off your emotions so you won't be scared anymore. He throws her onto her back and then stakes her, and Elena screams, Jenna! And it's heartbreaking, and it is that scene that is the reason why I will never be on this soft, poor, traumatized baby Klaus. Oh, my little soft poor Caroline. He's such a sweet little artist. His daddy was mean to him. Oh.
Klaus, I don't care. And I will continue to say that all the way through season 3. So just be prepared for that if you're a Klaus stanny. This is not a Klaus household.
He takes so much glee in the sacrifice as well. It's not even like he's like, oh, this is a matter-of-fact thing. I'm doing it because it needs to be done. He's like, I can't wait to murder these 3 women that I've kidnapped. When he greets them initially, he's like, hello, my lovelies. It's like, oh.
I hate him. The thing is, he's fun sometimes. I get it. But also, it's like fundamentally, this man is such a menace and such...
He's a great villain. Like, he and Catherine love them as villains, but I'll never look at them as characters and seriously be like, oh, these were good people deep down. They deserve my sympathy. Absolutely not. Like, they had hardships.
Whatever. Because I don't think anyone ever tries to convince you of that. But like, the idea that then this is someone who can just be like a romantic pursuit for someone in the MFG is like...
in some way. And it's like, yes, they were both victims of other people's abuse, but then they turned around and hurt so many other people in their incredibly long lives.
You spent 1,000 years just wrecking shop. And now, because a pretty little blonde girl has caught your eye, I'm supposed to be like, ooh, he paints a pretty little picture. No, the North remembers, buddy. Anyway, Elena finally is grabbed by Klaus, and he exsanguinates and kills her, but not before...
He has the audacity to say thank you to her before he kills her, and she's just like, go to hell.
Go to hell! And then he drains her of her blood, and she collapses.
While Stefan watches, because Stefan's lying on the floor with a stake in his back.
Because Stefan's got a stake in his back. He's lying there, he can't do anything. Barney fortunately shows up, does some mega magic, rocks Klaus's shit. Stefan tells Damon to grab Elena, take her to safety, while he stays and makes sure that Klaus is dead. Fortunately for Elena, she wakes up human back home because John Gilbert had secretly, well, not secretly, she just wasn't there, had asked Bonnie to cast this spell that Emily Bennett had worked on, a resuscitation spell that would connect John's life force to Elena's so that when she died, she would rise again. They don't know, and it happens sort of off to the side while everyone's celebrating Elena being awake and human. John collapses on the stoop because he has effectively given his life force to Elena. The one good thing he'll ever do in his life. But well done. Cut to a new day where the Gilbert kids have to bury both their aunt and their uncle / bio dad. Like the last of their family, at least at this point. I mean, they still have each other. They're the only family they have left. They have a really lovely moment where they tell each other, like, it's just us now. And we've got to stick together. And Birdie's cover of Skinny Love is playing as they embrace.
Heartbreaking.
Because, of course, you're not crying enough. We need to really just, like, rip your gut out. We've got to play Skinny Love, the Birdie cover.
And it's like, because of Elijah's betrayal and Klaus getting away, this has all been for nothing. Jenna died for nothing.
Jenna died. John died. At least it brought Elena back. But it's like, Klaus gets to win. Awful. They have a funeral. While the funeral goes on, Jeremy has given Elena this letter that John left behind for her. And John Gilbert himself is reciting the letter, sort of non-diegetically from beyond the grave. He recounts his hopes that Elena will live long enough to have her own children and do much better than he ever did with her. And that child is who his ring is for, because he leaves her his Gilbert ring. Which they've all just accepted she can't use because she's a doppelganger.
Yeah.
Crazy to test that out. He doesn't ask for her to forgive and forget, but to believe that whether she's human or a vampire now, when she wakes up, he loves her as he always has and always will. And it is a really nice closeout for the John Elena like connection, because like he dies to save her life. He leaves this ring for her and is like, all the beliefs I had in life matter nothing because you are my child and you are first before everything in this world. Love that.
Beautiful. Some parents could learn from that. I mean, John, a lot of flaws, but the
So
idea that
many.
he could give up this fundamental thing that he's believed in so strongly. The only allowance he ever made for it was Isabel because he was in love with her. And that's the thing. It's like, love should trump everything. You should be able to be like, listen, you are a human being who I care about. I don't care what I've been taught and told. If you are happy and healthy and safe, that's all that matters to me.
That's all that matters. Yeah, sometimes vampirism is a queer allegory, and you know, what can you do? So, final episode, Damon comes to apologize to Elena for what he did being force-feeding her vampire blood, knowing she doesn't want to be a vampire. Because he's dying, is the thing. She says she needs
I was
time.
thinking, is Sandile not going to mention this? I feel like you're definitely going to be like, it's only because he's on death's door.
You think I'm going to leave that shit out? I will contextualize every single thing. He is dying now and is like, oh damn, I'm going to die with her mad at me, so... But to his credit, he doesn't tell her that he's dying and he's like, okay, take all the time you need, and heads off. So, well done. Elena has a picnic with Jeremy and Caroline. They're trying to like normal their way through the grief. Stefan comes over and informs Elena that Damon's actually been bitten by Tyler when he was rescuing him and Caroline. Because it was the full moon and he turned. Stefan is busy trying to save his life as usual, but just in case he doesn't succeed, she deserves a chance to say goodbye. Elena learns that the sheriff and her deputies are chasing after Damon, who's been running through town, rabid, attacking people. When she tries to stop them, Liz is like, you, deputy number 6, hold her here in my office until we've sorted this out. So a deputy keeps her captive in the sheriff's office. Elena's like, do you know who I am? Grabs a chair, throws it at the window and jumps out through there and goes out into town. She's the one to find Damon after the cornering in the girl, after Jeremy's been shot, everything. Finds him mid-delusion. He starts feeding off of her, but she manages to get through to him and to like get him off her, to like get him back to his own faculties. And she holds him over herself and gets him home. She nurses him the same way that she did Rose when she was going through her wolf bite. And then, of course, towards the end, with Levi Crisis, I Should Go playing in the background, which is a really good song. Listen to that song if you've never heard it. She gets her kisses in when she has the chance just before Damon dies.
It's a soft kiss. There was no lingering. There was no tongue, but it is on the lips.
It is on the lips, which we all know means something. So let's not.
It's when Damon has been in a delirium all day, flashbacking to his human life in the 1860s, and so as he's on his like last limbs, he tells Elena, "You should have met me in 1864. You would have liked me then." Because I guess we're supposed to believe he was a sweeter person pre-vampirism. I mean, Confederacy aside, fine. I'll believe that Damon was nicer.
We get flashbacks later on that show that he actually wasn't all that nice. He was a little bit stiff, and that's about it. He was never nice. He was just like a goody-goody. So those, and I'll tell you, those things are not like a perfect circle.
That's true. But Elena tells him that I like you now, just the way you are, which I'm like,
insane. I'm sorry. That was a bit much. I take it back.
I like, if I take myself out of my own personal opinions and I put myself into, a person watching a narrative unfold, it's very sweet to see that with all his flaws, with his blood-stained heart and blood-stained hands, Elena looks at him and she's like, I do see something in you worth liking and caring about. You don't need to worry that who you are now is someone that I hate.
I like that idea. I like the idea of like warts and all, right? It's like you may not see yourself as someone worth loving, but I love you. I like the ideal. It's just like, it's not the right person, unfortunately.
If there had been better writing of the character.
Every time, this is the thing, and when we go into season 3, I'll be saying this a number of times, but it's like, a lot of these moments are really good. I can't twist my brain to just live in that moment because she's talking about someone who's just objectively so awful.
Oh no, that's the only way I was able to enjoy the show, by twisting my brain and seeing these scenes as an island that exists by themselves.
Oh, it's hard, man. It's always, every time I see Damon's face, it's always at the forefront. Every single thing he's done up until that moment is playing back in my head as I watch him pretend as though everything's great and good.
If I had watched the show from the beginning, because as I've said, I started like middle of season 2. If I had watched the show from the beginning, I never would have been able to reconcile Damon on the side of the protagonists with the stuff he did at the beginning of season 1, with the Vicky and the Caroline of it all. It never would have worked for me.
God, especially the Caroline of it all. Especially the way the dynamic of Elena, Damon, and Caroline unfolds going forward. It's so just like, wow.
Yeah, because watching, I should actually say it. Watching, I mean, we can get into it in the Caroline episode, I don't know, but I'll say it now, just as a placeholder, as someone who hadn't seen season 1. I could very much understand why people wouldn't like him. Bonnie doesn't like him. Caroline doesn't like him. But Bonnie mostly avoids him. Caroline's very much like, oh, I'm part of the vampire family, so I'm like always in it with Damon, and I don't like him, and I make it clear I don't like him. She's very snippy, and it's like, okay, she just doesn't like her friend's friend / love interest. And then when I went back and learned what happened, I was like, wait, no, this is a victim who now has to hang around with her abuser and just accept that he's part of the squad.
Yeah.
But the narrative treats it like, oh, there's beef between them and haha, they're always bickering. It's like...
Yeah, it's like I have to sit here and watch you date my abuser, who you called out and caught out for abuse, because my memory was wiped of it. You're the one who saved me from that situation, and now you're dating him? But of course, it's that, like, we're pretending that didn't happen, or we're pretending that it was not as bad as it was, because Caroline will be told, oh, but you dated him, so clearly it's not that big a deal. It's like, oh yeah, when I was mind controlled?
Not even dated him. She's told, oh, you hate Damon, you think he's vile? So what was it about him that made you jump into bed with him the first moment you met him? And I'm like, whoa.
Ooh.
I don't know, Elena, maybe it's that I didn't know he was a vampire, and as soon as he revealed it and started to eat me, he compelled me to not panic or leave.
Stresses me out. We'll get there. The last thing that happens for Elena is that Catherine comes over with the cure, which is Klaus's blood. The only cure for a werewolf bite. So far. Elena asks...
There's like 3 cures that end up existing in this universe.
So many options. Elena asks where Stefan is, and Catherine is like, are you sure you care?
I love
seem
her.
nice and comfortable with Damon, so not a big deal to you.
I love Catherine. She's
Drag
such a
her.
cat.
She is. She's got cat energy. I love that. But she does share that Stefan has given himself over to Klaus to pay for the thing that is now saving Damon's life. And that is when Catherine hands over the cure, and as she leaves, she gives Elena the iconic, "It's okay to love them both, you know. I did," and departs. And that is the last time we see Elena in the 2nd season. A really good Elena. Elena in these first 3 seasons is best Elena. It is always building. Season 2 is just killing it so much better than season 1 is. Season 3 is my favorite Elena. Season 3, she's just like meteoric rise.
Looking back on it now as we have, season 1 of this show, one of the things that draws you in the plot is the duality of Stefan, the good vampire who is trying to fight against these dangerous instincts that he doesn't like, and Damon, the bad vampire who's given into everything. It's this darkness, it's this, 2 sides of the same coin. Season 2 is very interesting in that it also explores this duality with Katerina Petrova and Elena Gilbert.
Yes.
It's the doppelgangers. Yes, obviously they look alike and they've had relationships, more so in Catherine's side, with the same 2 men.
Right.
But it's like, how do they navigate those relationships? How do they navigate the Klaus of it all? Klaus coming into their lives, where Catherine tricks and she schemes and she saves herself. And she does care about people, but she's always numero uno in her mind. Whereas Elena, it's like, Elena can also trick and scheme, but always to save the people she cares about before herself. And
yes,
the minute she finds out that Klaus is coming for her, first thought is, oh my gosh, Bonnie, Jeremy, Caroline, the Salvatores, everyone around me, Jenna, I don't want these people to get hurt. Catherine, the minute she found out Klaus wanted her, it was, oh, how do I use Trevor, who I know is in love with me, to steal me away from Elijah, who was also in love with me?
Spinning those men around. It's crazy.
So that I can get Rose to turn me into a vampire by mistake and then leave them to be hunted by Klaus forever, as I say, better you die than I. Arc words for Catherine Pierce.
No wonder everyone's always telling Elena, oh, just like Catherine, because they see all these men flocking around her and they start projecting Catherine onto her, because Catherine was spinning all those men around. She was playing every single one of them. So the moment that, like, Elena is just like being pursued by multiple people, or multiple people are just like always worried about keeping her alive, everyone's like, oh, it's all about you. Oh, you're just as bad as Catherine. It's like, everyone's just projecting Catherine shit onto her. It's crazy. But like you say, they are two sides of the same coin. They are diametric opposites in the same situation they've been confronted with. And they use similar methods to do opposite things. And I also think that, like, Elena's love for her loved ones, her compassion for them, is never in question. How far she is willing to go for them, that line gets further and further as we go season by season, right? And it's understandable because her whole regime has changed. Her whole milieu has changed. She's dealing with the supernatural. She's dealing with immortal beings. She's dealing with 1,000-year-old beings. She has to grow and change to be able to match them at their level in order to make sure that her loved ones are safe. It isn't surprising that she does become a lot more like Catherine, but again, like you say, to protect her loved ones.
Yeah.
And as we go into season 3, we start seeing where that line is drawn between people who she is trying to protect and people who she has done the math and has decided they can be thrown aside to make sure that this circle is safe. It's very fascinating.
It's also interesting that, like, Elena's relationship with Bonnie, for example, we do see Catherine with another Bennett witch who she's roped into helping her because, oh, she's in her debt. But she's very much, even in that friendship, she's like, hey, if you betray me, I'll kill you too. Lucy betrays her because it's a coercive relationship. She doesn't really want to help Catherine. Whereas Elena has Bonnie on her side who's like, it's like, no, I'll die for you. No, I'll die for you.
No, I'll die for you. It's like, yeah, that's what friendship means.
And when it gets to the point that Elena finally says, I love my vampire boyfriend. I don't see him as scary or ugly. However, I do not want to be a vampire. I have never wanted to be a vampire. Not even now that my life is on the line am I considering immortality and superpowers. Whereas Catherine, as soon as the chance arose, she was like, give me super speed and super strength and the ability to heal so I can protect myself from Klaus and the evils of this world.
Instant move. She ran straight from Klaus's house to Trevor and Rose's house, turned herself into a vampire the same night. Fascinating. We jump into season 3. It's Elena's 18th birthday. It has been like 3 months, I believe. I think, yeah, they were graduating at the end of season 2, and it's been the summer now.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
This is senior year.
Oh, yes. I forget. Seasons 1 and 2 are all grade 11 for these
1
kids.
year. Yeah. Now they're going into grade 12 for season 3 and 4. We just don't see them graduate. It happens off screen, and then the summer happens, and now they're here.
I wonder if the school wondered where Stefan was.
Stefan's attendance is a question mark, because even while he's there for those 2 seasons, there's big chunks of time that he's just not at school. American public schools especially, they're very serious about attendance. If you are absent for even like 1 day without any like genuine reason, they'll like call child protective services on your home. It's like, why are you? It's like a serious offense. But yeah, which begs the question, how were the Cullens constantly pulling their children out of school for like frivolous things?
Oh, wealth and privilege. That's all it was.
Yeah, that's true. You just donate a wing to the school, you know? And for Stefan, it's like my power of compulsion. Just tell them it's okay that I've been absent for 2 months. Everyone is in Cope City right now, given Jenna's death, Stefan's disappearance. In true fashion, Elena's keeping the house going. She's waking up Jeremy to get to work, because he works at the grill now. He's incredibly late. She's making coffee for Rick, who is on their couch now, has been for most of the summer to take care of them, and he doesn't know how to work their coffee machine, apparently. And then she's coordinating with Caroline and Sheriff Forbes on Stefan news. What is Klaus up to? Because Klaus has snatched Stefan and has gone. So they're like, what's the trails of bodies? Where are these two right now? She is trooping and she refuses to give up. She gets a lead from Caroline about Tennessee, where they found like some, attacks that would suggest vampires. She shares the lead with Damon, who tells her it's another dead end. But he later chases that up with Andy Starr, his news anchor blood bag, who this always struck me because he's like, Elena, you don't deserve to know that I'm actually following Stefan and tracking him down. But Andy Starr, you will help me do this. And even in the last season when he was going to dagger Elijah, he had Andy orchestrate and help him out. And it's like, this is so... What does that say? I guess he considers Andy disposable.
Yeah.
So he can put her in danger, but not Elena, which is like levels of messed up.
She's his pretend girlfriend, as Stefan calls her in season 2.
Andy's right. So he's coordinating with Andy Starr and Rick. He then later comes back to Elena and says, I got you a present. And it's her own necklace, which she lost off screen apparently at Rick's loft when Klaus snatched her for the sacrifice.
Oh, I think Catherine had been wearing the necklace when she impersonated Elena and was then captured by Maddox. So it had been at Rick's house the whole summer.
That's crazy. Then we cut to the party. Hello by Martin Solveig and Dragonette. If you remember that song that took over that one year. I just came to say hello. No?
Oh, yes.
Like a big EDM song?
I do remember that.
Yeah. Caroline has thrown Elena an enormous party that she did not want, but Elena just kind of throws herself into it nonetheless. She sees Jeremy smoking weed, asks Rick to talk to him because Jeremy looks up to him, and then she grabs a drink from Damon, downs a big sip, and then goes back into the house, which I thought was great. And she finds Caroline in Damon's room, who's gone off to like drink a little blood because she's dealing with some other stuff. Tells her that she might pass on the rest of the party. Caroline starts arguing with her about how she's letting her life pass her by because she's so wrapped up in this whole thing of like Stefan being gone. Elena's like, am I supposed to give up on him? And she's like, no, but don't give up on the rest of your life either. On Elena's way out, she sees, because Damon's left his closet like slightly ajar, she sees like something pasted, something hanging from it. She opens it and finds a big old evidence board and that he's been tracking Stefan this whole time and been hiding it from her.
The Styles Stilinski board.
The Styles red string board. You gotta love to see it. She goes to him and confronts him about how he made her feel like an idiot for having hope. And he says she was an idiot. And there's like a good 2 seconds before he's like, we both were, because he's come back from an encounter with Stefan because he went to track him down. And Stefan, I believe, kills Andy in this first episode. So...
Yeah.
He tells her the bodies that they've been finding are not Klaus's, they're Stefan's. He's gone full-blown Ripper, which I believe they mentioned Ripper in season 2. In the flashback when Stefan tells Elena about what happened right after they turned into vampires and how Lexi helped him. Lexi finding him is like, oh, you're a Ripper. And that's when it becomes like a thing.
Yes. Klaus mentions it later when he gets Stefan onto his side. He's like, oh, I heard about this crazy bloke, the Ripper of Monterey. Now that's a guy I can use. That's a guy I can make a bargain with.
Gets him onto his side, doing a lot of heavy lifting. He tells her he's a lost cause. They shouldn't have had hope. Drop in the Ocean starts playing. Also a very good song. A lot of these songs were on my high school playlist because they were from the Vampire Diaries.
Love a Drop in the Ocean. I actually found it on 90210 first.
I heard it here and remember it because of this scene. She comes home. She finds Rick. He's leaving because he's like, I'm not a good role model. I shouldn't be the one to watch over you guys. I'm a drunk, like early 30s man with no direction. I gotta go.
And you're 18 now. You can take care of yourself. And I'm like, dude, she's in grade 12.
What? She is still a high schooler. Legally, you may be correct, but you are not right.
This is a no-income household, unless you count Jeremy, who is a minor, and there's probably limits to how many hours he can even work.
They've got that trust fund. They're fine.
In truth,
they don't need the money. Jeremy's working as a distraction.
I was like, these are 2 kids, and I'm like...
Yeah, he's having his own problems is the thing. He's just lost Jenna.
I guess the idea is that he's like, I'm such a mess that even the little that you might be able to do for yourself is better than what I could do.
Better. After he's gone and she's preparing for bed, she gets a call, which I assume is from an unknown number, because she just looks at it and answers and is like, hello? Which I guess in 2011 we were still answering unknown numbers. There is silence at the other end, and almost immediately she's like, Stefan? Silence still. She's like, Stefan, if this is you, you'll be okay. I love you, Stefan. Hold on to that. And never let that go. On the other side, Stefan's like so close to tears and he's nodding even though she can't see her. But it's just really sad, emotional moment. Because on the other side, Stefan has been enslaved effectively by Klaus. Klaus has spent the last couple of months, in order to get the cure for him, Klaus forces him to drink a shit ton of blood to like make him worse than he is, because he knows that Stefan, on human blood, completely different person. Surprisingly, and we will come to learn this over the next couple of episodes, Stefan is still in a significant amount of control, and a lot of what he's doing is to throw Klaus off the trail. So hold that in your minds as we go through these next couple of episodes. Next episode, renewed with determination because of this call. She rings up Rick, asks for whatever he knows about Stefan, because he was working with Damon, saying that he and Damon are free to check out, but she's not the kind of person who does that. Rick tells her that Clefin have been tracking werewolves down in Tennessee. She immediately goes, okay, I know a werewolf, Tyler. I'll ask him if he knows anything. And this is her one conversation with Tyler this season.
I mean, you joke, but I think it really is like one of two convos they have.
Right.
The next one is in the finale.
Yeah. So she asks him, hey, so werewolves, right? Do you know of any who are in this specific area in Tennessee? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I know everything about werewolves after my one trip with Jules. Here's some locations on your phone map. So she goes back to Rick and is like, Smoky Mountains, Tennessee, let's go. And they're on the trail. They've got their big old bags. He gives her a wolfsbane grenade for her protection. She gives him the Gilbert ring for his protection. And they have this little tender moment about him not being like a lost cause because he seems to think he's done for. And Damon shows up and shoves her into the creek. So
I had forgotten that he shoves her into the creek.
Yeah, he vamps over and shoves it into the creek, and then he turns to Rick and like, thanks for letting me know where you are, brother. Which is like Rick's his new brother now that Stefan's gone, like immediately. It's so wild. Yeah, he shoves her. It's not just into the creek, too. It's like a 20-foot drop into the creek. It's so far down. It's crazy.
It's that thing of like, oh, the bad boy who's like bullying his love interest, and we're supposed to think it's endearing. It's very much that Jace Wayland thing where, I mean, Jace, I don't think is physically violent with Clary, but he's constantly making fun of her.
On her case.
Being sarcastic.
Calling her stupid and human. Calling her weak and lame. It's just like, do you even like this girl? What the hell? Maybe I just don't understand. They then head out, because Damon's just here now, and they are going looking for, I guess they're just out in the woods just looking for Klaus and Stefan, hoping they'll find them tracking wolves. It's a long shot. They instead run into a werewolf, who then turns out to be a hybrid.
A failed hybrid.
Who is bleeding from the face. They tie him up to a tree. Elena's about to interrogate him, but he starts turning well before the full moon. Because that's the other crazy thing. They're going there on the day of a full moon. Elena's like, we'll have plenty of time before we have to leave. He starts turning like just as it's hitting late afternoon, early evening, well before the apex of the moon. So they have to leave. She and Rick go to the car while Damon, I guess, goes to run off the hybrid. She's telling Rick once again, listen, you're not a lost cause. You're just lost. And so is Jeremy, and so am I. But we're all that we have. So we've got to stick together. So then he's like, okay, fine. Then I'm keeping the ring. And it's this thing of like, okay, we've got this kind of familial connection that's been building here, both over the summer and in these last couple of like days or week or however it's been since the season started, which I love. I love the Elena Rick connection. Damon, later that evening when they've gone home, he comes over to Elena's house and tells her that he saw Stefan, who saved him from the manic rabbit hybrid. So, unfortunately for him, there is a part of Stefan that is still left in there, so he's going to help get him back. Their next lead is in Chicago, they are chasing down a lead from Catherine, but Damon has not told Elena that Catherine has given them this lead. In the 20s, Stefan was hanging out in Chicago a lot. He gives Elena one of Stefan's diaries from his dark days to prepare her for what she's going to see when they get there. So they go to an apartment that he had there in the 20s, where he has a hidden wall with the names of all of his victims scrolled out, just like all the way down. The wall is covered in them. Very small font writing too. And Elena's been reading sort of Stefan's diaries about like how he will wake up not remembering like what has happened, covered in blood, people strewn dead bodies around him. It's rough. Damon then leaves her at this apartment.
You see, this is what I mean. It's like, she'll be fine here in the apartment of the possibly Ripper vampire who used to live here and is currently in this city. With Klaus, who's supposed to think Elena's dead.
He says, I'm gonna go ask around his old stomping grounds. So Elena just stays in the apartment reading more of Stefan's diary, his recovery with Lexi after the 20s. Then she hears noises in the hallway. And Klaus and Stefan come in. Fortunately, she has stashed herself away in that same hidden cubby once they get in. Klaus is busy reinitiating Stefan into his kill club, opens the hidden cubby to show Stefan the wall and remind him, yeah, this is when I knew you were the guy I needed, you're the Ripper. Because Klaus is convinced that Stefan's process of, like, writing down the names is so he can relive the kill, rather than, like, it's to remind himself that he has taken a life and he must never forget it. It's just, Klaus, we'll get into Klaus another day and how just, like, I'm very interested in picking apart that duality, those two. So he opens that cubby to show Stefan the wall. Stefan goes in. He goes into the cubby and finds Elena in there. And is like, what? He doesn't say anything, obviously, because Klaus is behind him.
Elena gives us like a little smile. Like, she's like, oh, it's Stefan. And I'm like, no, Elena, you should be terrified. Vampires have super smell and super hearing, and Klaus is around the corner.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy that Klaus does not clock her. That neither of them clock her until Stefan physically sees her. I guess they haven't activated their powers. I guess it's something you've gotta, like, push to surface. I mean, Caroline is always tucking her hair, right? And actively listening in when she needs to eavesdrop. So maybe it's just not all the time.
Maybe it's like a switch that you can flip on and off, because they are in these physically human bodies, like human-shaped bodies.
Yeah.
So maybe you have to like consciously activate the magic, much like making your fangs pop out.
Or flipping your humanity switch. Being a vampire is being a giant switchboard, apparently.
It's just weird. They've walked into this musty, dusty apartment that at least Stefan has not inhabited in the last 80 years, and they don't immediately smell that a warm human body has been in here.
Freshly present. I will say, she is stunned at first to see him, and they both pause for a second, and then she starts smiling, because it's like, well, I mean, it's her boyfriend who she hasn't seen in 3 months, and he's okay, seemingly. And then in the middle of that moment where it's like, oh, we haven't seen each other, shock, tenderness, Stefan suddenly shouts, look what I found! And Elena suddenly has the fear of God coursing through her for a moment.
The way my heart dropped below my appendix the first time I saw that scene.
Terrifying! Stefan grabs a bottle of whiskey and is like, look at this old thing from the 20s. It probably tastes excellent now. And then him and Klaus head off.
A bottle that was like right next to her head. I'm like, when you said, look what I found, what if Klaus had vampirized in there to see what you were talking about?
Because he assumed you meant someone is here that needs to be killed.
Or even if he assumed it was, something as benign as a bottle, but he just wanted to see. And like, oh, what did you find, Bestie?
Fortunately for them, Klaus is in just a chill mood that day, and they're like, let's go drink this together. And they leave, and she waits there for hours with her vervain jabber out until Damon finally gets back. And she's like, oh my god, a nightmare. And he's like deflecting any sense of danger that she was in. He is like, are you okay though? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. And then he's like, okay, the plan, we are going to a party that Stefan will definitely be attending.
Is that what we're calling them?
I said it earlier and you didn't respond. So I was like,
I'm
okay,
sorry,
well, I
I
guess
might
it
have
doesn't
missed
sound
it.
that cool. It's fine.
I like it. I do like that Elena, once Stefan and Klaus leaves, stays exactly where she is and doesn't leave. And
move.
I'm like, thank you. Because if this were a horror movie, she would have stepped out the minute that they left through the front door, as if these two might not still turn around and come back.
Oh, I left behind the other bottle of whiskey that's like secondarily good to the one I grabbed. Let's just bring that one just in case. Self-preservation. But yeah, he's gonna lure Stefan out, and then she must speak to him while he distracts Klaus. At risk of his own life, which I'm like, go Damon. They head out to the party. They manage to do this. Damon and Klaus are in the bar or the dance hall or wherever it is talking while Stefan has been drawn outside for Elena to speak to him. And she tries to talk some sense into him. She gets him into an embrace. She pulls out a vampire jabber because she's like, I'm doing this by any means necessary. But he catches her hand before she can do it and says, no, I'm not coming with you. I don't want to.
Also, she did that when he was, off the rails in season 1. So Stefan's like, I saw the first season. I'm not falling for this again.
You fooled me when I was in a fugue state, but I'm lucid right now, girl. You should know, I'm doing everything in my power to keep Klaus away from you. You are the reason he can't make any new hybrids. Elena learns she was meant to die in the sacrifice, and because they managed to save her, Klaus's curse is still sort of halfway in. He can now be a hybrid, but he can't make new hybrids. She's like, okay, I know you're trying to protect me, but I can't let you do this. Come home with me. And he says, the damage is already done. I've left bodies and bodies for months. Even after Alexei patented rehab period, it would take him decades to pull himself together, which would be half of Elena's life. So this, as far as he's concerned, is done and is unsalvageable, and she needs to find a way to move on from him. Which, really tragic. Again, martyr stuff. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's they really get, I've said this before, but Stelena's always getting shot out of the water by circumstances beyond either of their control. Because it's Klaus shows up, enslaves him. He now has to do everything he can to protect Elena, and in the process, he has thrown himself into his Ripper era, and it's gonna take him ages to get back, and because of that now, they can't be together. It sucks!
Yeah.
That's how that episode ends. He walks off, and she has to go home empty-handed. The next episode, she's in the kitchen making chili for a Lockwood party, for whatever reason. She and Damon, I guess, have just sort of gone, okay, well, I mean, we can't force him, clearly, so we've just gotta, leave it as is. As she's making the chili, Rick is, watching her, and Damon, who's just here, just being a hindrance, but he's clocking that, oh, he seems to be moving in on this territory. There seems to be something going on here. Put that in the back of my head. Caroline and Bonnie, again, Bonnie, who's been inexplicably absent for the first 3 episodes of the show. She's apparently back from being out of town for the summer. Which is okay.
With her dad's family that she doesn't like.
Right, who she doesn't like. And her dad, who we've never met. So, okay. Bonnie and Caroline come to help her cook for this event, and randomly, Elena's necklace starts burning her. They don't know why, but we know Gloria's there on the other side in Chicago. Gloria's this witch that Klaus and Stefan have found. Klaus, Stefan, and a newly undaggered Rebecca. Rebecca's entered the scene, and they're
Becky.
listen, we need this necklace. It's a talisman to locate who you're trying to find, the original witch. He wakes Rebecca. Rebecca's like, I don't have it. And it's oh, it's this necklace that Stefan gave to Elena. So as Gloria tries to locate it, it burns Elena. Bonnie's like, give that shit to me. You know I'm only back in the story to do magic for you. So.
Now that you mentioned it, that's why Bonnie
That's when they bring her back.
This episode.
If they didn't need a witch to do a spell in this episode, Bonnie would not be here. Crazy.
She really is just there for the necklace and the ghost arc of it all.
It's
at the beginning of season 3.
In the next scene when they're in the park trying to figure out what's going on with the necklace, Bonnie is in the back of the scene with her grimoire open, just being like, don't bother me, I'm trying to do magic. Elena and Caroline are in the foreground having this conversation now about Elena and her antics, what's going on with Damon, because Caroline's
Are
like,
you
what's going
switching
on over there?
Salvatores?
That's what You're not switching Salvatores, are you?
That's such a good. Every time Caroline is getting on her case about now what's going on here? It's my favorite thing. It's girlie, what's the plan? You seem to just be floating without one, and I want to know what your plan is. So she's reminding her of the type of person that Damon is, grilling her to be okay, so are you dating him now? Do you want to date him? What? Later on, like on the way out of the Lockwood party's not super important, Damon tells Elena and Rick that Bill Forbes, who has shown up, who he's compelled to leave town at some point at the sheriff's request, is still in town and is actively now taking over the council. So they're like, oh, he can't be compelled. Elena, seemingly swayed by Caroline's conversation from earlier, is like, what did you do to Bill Forbes that you would need to compel him? And Damon's like, hold on, where's this energy coming from? And then she also says, maybe it's a good thing that he joins the council, you know, puts vervain in the water supply. It'll keep you in check now that Stefan's off doing whatever. Damon's like, oh, so I need to be kept in control. Maybe I should just kill Bill Forbes to solve the problem, because you know Damon, when Damon feels threatened, he just leans straight into what you expect of him. Elena's like, it's Caroline's dad. And Damon's like, okay, and why should I care? I'll just kill him and she'll have as many parents as we have. So, which is like an insane thing to say. But okay, Rick is like, Damon, that's not gonna happen. After having earlier told him, listen, I'm seeing your energy with Elena, I need you to take a beat. Okay, I have to look out for her, and you are a whole situation. Damon's like, this is the second time you've gotten in my way, Rick. You start to piss me off. And then snaps Rick's neck and heads off.
Rick, who is wearing a Gilbert ring,
He is wearing a Gilbert ring, but rightfully, Rick is then pissed off with him for like a good 10 episodes or something, because you still killed me. It doesn't matter that I can come back. It means something that you killed me.
The bar is in hell where Damon is concerned, because it's amazing that this time he knew someone was wearing the Gilbert ring when he snapped their neck.
As opposed to the last time he killed a member of Elena's family, in which he did not see any sort of ring and was killing her brother to kill her brother. Elena calls Caroline to be like, I think Damon's about to kill your dad, girlie. Caroline rushes in to protect her dad from Damon. And then Elena comes in afterwards and is like, yeah, what the hell? And Damon's like, don't try to change me. Don't try to make me Stefan now that Stefan's not here. I'm not the good guy. It's like, okay, cool. The next day, Caroline confronts Elena about the fact that no matter what, she says she is into Damon. Because Elena's doing this thing of like, you're right, Damon is how he is, I just always forget. And Caroline's like, okay, fine, but ultimately you like him, whether you want to admit it or not. And Elena's like, I can't admit it to myself, because then what does it say about me? Which I thought was wild. I'd forgotten that she had said that, because that is the sort of conversation we had during the Damon episode about like, what does it say of Elena that she spends so long okaying Damon and then being in a relationship with Damon, despite the fact that Damon kind of start to finish does not really change. And Caroline says it means that you're human, which I get, because it's like you can't control who you feel something for. So that's valid.
And I guess Caroline, coming off of season 2, she also knows what it's like to be into more than one person at a time, because of her own love triangle.
Miss Original Love Triangle. She said, before you ran this road, girlie, I was jogging, I was sprinting, and now it's your turn to fly. The next episode is Senior Prank Night. The new seniors.
Are you saying it like that because of Joseph Morgan?
Yes. It's my favorite delivery, his awful American accent. Seniors, the prank night has officially been busted. So good. They're at the school doing some lame high school shit. Honestly, the pranks are like not even impressive. But, you know, it's a rite of passage and everyone's suffering. Elena's walking out of a hallway kind of smiling to herself as she passes Tyler and his friends, which is like, oh, Tyler has other friends. I guess that's fair. He's barely with us.
He's on a football team. And he claimed he played 3 varsity sports. So apparently he's on other teams as well.
You know? So she's like, oh, Tyler, what a card. And then heads out and runs straight into Klaus.
Jump scare. Sometimes I forget that this show can be very horror-esque when it wants to be.
Terrifying. A little sound effect here, a sudden appearance there, and we're in Scream. Suddenly we're in Wrong Turn. What's happening? Cannibals about? What are we doing?
Because there was no indication, even at the end of the last episode, that Klaus was even thinking about going. Wait, did he go?
Oh, well, I mean, there was.
Did he go? Oh, no,
at the end of the last episode is when he brings Stefan to Mystic Falls.
Okay, yes. There was no indication that he was going to the school, though. So it's like,
that
you weren't
was the one
expecting
who was
him
like,
to be around.
It's like right at the beginning of the episode, he's already here with Elena. Crazy.
And he clearly already knows Elena's alive, because at the end of the last episode, it's like, I've come back to town to see what you've been hiding from me, Stefan. I know you're keeping something from me. We're going to find out what it is. And then bam, suddenly it's like, oh, I know Elena's alive. Hi, Elena.
And I guess he must have just surveilled, because up until this point, he has not compelled Stefan. He has just been very fortunate in that Stefan is invested in keeping him off the trail, and he just thinks Stefan is with him out of camaraderie and brotherhood.
He must have been watching for a while. Maybe he was even like, I'm going to watch her for like a day and make sure it's not Catherine. And then
he learned from the best. He's like, you're supposed to be dead. Then drags her into the school, and as we all know, he enacts his plan to force a bunch of high schoolers to solve his problems for him, figure out how to make his hybrids, or Tyler dies. Rebecca meets Elena for the first time, and she says the original doppelganger was much prettier, which is an insane thing to say about people who look exactly alike. But alas, she's just
have
being
different
petty.
fashion senses and different hairstyles.
She explicitly says prettier, which I feel like is primarily of the face. And they've stressed enough that these women look identical. Rebecca's just here to be a bitch. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's funny as hell.
Rebecca said, I like a girl with wavy hair.
She said, I will not abide boring pin straight styles. Okay, not in my business. Stefan, of course, rushes to the school. He had been like, I don't know, Klaus like jabbed a crowbar pipe or some sort of weapon into him to like disable him. He's finally freed himself of that, runs in. He tries to beg Klaus's forgiveness. Klaus has got Elena and these two other high schoolers in the gym and sent everyone else off.
One of whom is the girl he compelled
Yes!
through Alaric's eyes when he was possessing
They
Alaric.
brought her back!
Just saying, this really hot guy named Klaus asked that you save a dance for him.
And then he makes Stefan kill her. And I was like, Klaus, after everything y'all have been through, how could you do that to her?
He literally, when he sees her, he's like, I remember you. And then she's like, do I know you? And he's like, sorry, love, I wasn't in my right head the last time we met. And then he compels her.
Yeah, he's like, okay, yeah, I'll forgive you. Let's drink on it. Kill these two high schoolers that I have hostage. Elena's like, no, Stefan, don't do it. Klaus won't hurt me. And the man walks over and backhands her across the face basketball court. Stefan rushes to attack him.
Elena really does get hit a lot in this show. Like, damn.
It's
like,
wild.
At least when Rose hit her, she landed on a couch. Like, Klaus backhands her across a basketball court.
She skids across that court. I think she bounces once. It's wild. It's crazy she survives. Because we know Klaus has whacked somebody to death at some point. So it's crazy.
I was surprised you didn't use the word whacked.
Stefan rushes to attack him. Klaus easily stops him and compels him. This is the first time that Klaus has compels him to follow orders and tells him to kill that same girlie from season 2. Klaus then puts a clock.
I think he kills both of them.
The dude, I think, is just standing there. I think he makes him stand on like one foot.
Initially, he tells the girl to stand on one foot and then tells the guy that if she drops the foot, he must beat her to death.
To beat her to death. God.
I don't know what the point of that was, because it's not even like he says, oh, Elena, if you try to leave, I'll kill these two.
Just to
He just
play.
compels them independently of what Elena does.
Yeah, he's just like, to entertain me while everyone like solves my problems. Let me just have a little fun. Wild, that man. He sets the basketball clock, the like buzzer clock, to be like, if Bonnie hasn't sorted my shit in 20 minutes, Stefan, you must feed on Elena. If she tries to run, fracture her spine. And then he leaves.
Which I'm like, horrible man, but very clever in terms of like, he's like, I don't want to kill her yet because I'm still figuring out what's going on here with the whole life death of the doppelganger thing. So instead, just paralyze her. She'll still be alive, she just won't be able to run away.
No one can say he's not efficient. Left to themselves, Elena tries to convince Stefan that he can fight the compulsion the way Bill Forbes did. Stefan scoffs at that, and she says, or you can just drink from me and control it. You've done it before. Stefan asserts that he is in full Ripper mode right now, and he will not be able to stop. Elena says, I don't believe that. You can fight it if you want it badly enough. And Stefan's like, very like dismissively, why? Because I love you? And she's like, yeah, because you love me. And after everything we've been through, you owe me that. Stefan says, that's true. I owe you everything because you're the only thing that has kept me going. But I cannot help what I am.
As the clock was approaching 0, he was like, run, Elena.
Yeah.
And then she's like, but Klaus said that if I try to leave, he's like, if you stay here, you're dead anyway.
So might as well go now. She stays until the last second though, and is like, you can fight it. And then it hits 0. Stefan's face turns and he runs at her and she screams, but he shoots past her and hits the wall and he clambers onto it and says, Elena, run! And then she starts running. And you know when my girl's running, she's sprinting. True final girl, she does not look back. Way behind her, Stefan, almost like Elijah being forced by the threshold spell, right? Which I thought was interesting, is running, hitting a wall. Running, hitting a wall, physically stopping himself with anything that he can to slow himself down. Elena unfortunately runs out straight into Klaus again. This bastard's like, we have to stop meeting like this. Oh, I hate him. I hate him so much. He drags her back inside and they go into the cafeteria where Stefan has just impaled himself with a broken off mop. In the same place that Elena broke off that mop to kill Noah, if you'll remember from season 1. I just thought that was cute. Klaus, a 1,000-year-old vampire, by the way, lived a millennia, says, this is fascinating. I've never seen this before. The only thing stronger than your craving for blood is your love for this one girl. And it'll always be like a monument for these two that will stand upon. Not just, Klaus is talking to like base vampire, but we're talking about Stefan, who is worse than most vampires in the world at handling his bloodlust. And still he was able to stop himself from compulsion to feed because he loved Elena that much. And I just think that's just so good.
The power of love.
The power they have.
We'll get back to this
We'll
later
back,
on in
baby.
this season, and people being able to
We'll circle back.
resist compulsion because of their love for Elena.
Klaus then, of course, compels Stefan to turn off his emotions because he tries and tries again to like order him just straight up to be like, just let it go. This girl doesn't matter. She's just one human girl. Because Klaus doesn't get it because he doesn't love anyone beyond himself. Baffled by why Stefan refuses to hurt her just because he said so. Baffled as to why Stefan won't turn off his emotions because it'll be easier that way. Is forced to compel Stefan to turn his emotions off and then instructs him to feed on Elena. And in this, their darkest moment, his face changes and Stefan runs up on Elena and she screams and we cut away because nobody wants to see that.
He has to, it's worth noting that Klaus has to give the instruction twice. He first calmly and gently says, turn it off. Stefan says no and pushes him away. Someone might interpret that as he wasn't compelling him yet, but I think he was compelling him in that moment. And Stefan resisted.
I can tell you he was because Klaus compelled him to follow orders.
There we go.
That was the initial compulsion. So Stefan is still actively fighting compulsion in that moment. He is actively fighting the instruction to turn off his emotions because he loves Elena.
Incredible. Incroyable. And then Klaus is like, let me renew my compulsion subscription.
New instruction.
Vamp rushes Stefan into the wall, screams at him, turn it off.
Let's load a new coding subroutine because the old one's corrupted. Turn it off!
And then Stefan turns it off. Elena's like, what did you do? And Klaus is like, I fixed him.
The tug of war of like, because they'll frame it as, there's two frameworks that they do. And it's the one of, well, I guess it is the same trio, right? Because it's Stefan, Klaus, Rebecca. And on this side, it's Damon, Rick, and Elena are the triangles they're like inverse mirrors of each other. And it happens for multiple reasons. The one is the like brotherhood angle that they try to swing, where it's like Klaus has snatched Stefan and made him his new brother because his own siblings are daggered in a coffin and he doesn't trust anyone. And at some point in the 20s, he was like besties with Stefan, so he wants to reclaim that. Whereas on this side, Damon has become closer with Rick because his actual brother is gone and they have now like, well, except for that 10 episodes where Rick is absolutely not his friend, they have become closer. So there's that thing. The brotherhood brotherhood one doesn't necessarily work for me for two reasons. One, because I think Klaus's thing with Stefan is much more of a romantic thing than even he realizes. That's for another episode. But because it's more interesting to me, the tug of war between Elena and Klaus rather than the one between Damon and Klaus, right? Because when it's Damon and Klaus, it's silly because at no point is there an implication that, like, Klaus has successfully managed to break apart him and Damon's bond and, like, replaced him as his brother. And also, I don't think I care about that. It's more interesting to me that, like, again, leaning into the, like, romance aspect of it, Klaus has stolen Stefan from Elena. And Stefan and Elena, the strong bond that is exhibited to us in this very scene, right, is what Klaus manages to sever. And he's so proud of that. He's like, I fixed him. I've made him the perfect companion for me. And in the process, taken him away from you. He has to break all that Stefan is to Elena to make him perfect for himself. I think that tug of war is a lot more interesting than when they try to, like, position it as, like, it's Damon and Klaus on either side of Stefan as the angel and the devil. Because it's like, in one world is Damon the angel also, now that I think about it, but, you know.
When compared to Klaus, I guess. But,
yeah. Comparatively, yeah.
The lesser of two evils.
But yeah, I don't know what you think about that. Like,
I mean, obviously, canonically, there's no romance between Klaus and Stefan.
No,
but I do
not.
see the shades of it. I certainly picked up on it when I was watching it by myself. I was like, you seem very invested in this friendship that doesn't really seem to gain you anything in your grander plans.
No, he just wants Stefan with him in a rare form where usually he's like, I need people to do things for me. Stefan is like, I need you because I want you by my side. Yes, you're useful to me in that you go crazy when you drink blood, but, like, also it's about the companionship. You're weirdly jealous when Stefan and Rebecca are hanging out. And it's like, yeah, you could argue it's because you're possessive over your sister, but it's like, you're never worried about Rebecca being hurt. You're just laughing at her, actually, in fact, when her relationships go bad. When her romance turns and backfires on her, you call her an idiot. You're never, like, trying to shield her from harm. So the jealousy isn't about Stefan getting with Rebecca. It seems like you're jealous that Rebecca's getting with Stefan when he's supposed to be your, quote, friend. Interesting.
She stole my friend. I guess it boils down to Klaus hates that ultimately other people are more likable than him. And I'm like, geez, Nick, I wonder why that is.
I wonder what we could do to sort that sort of problem out. No, I couldn't change. That's ridiculous.
So Tyler wakes up in transition. And then Klaus is like, teehee, you know how we've all been thinking that, you know, my hybrids aren't working because Elena was supposed to die? I am going to pull a gambit and be like, actually, I think Elena's death was a failsafe so that if I ever did break the curse, she'd be gone because I need living doppelganger blood to make my hybrids successfully transition from werewolves into, you know, vampire werewolf hybrids. So I think that feeding Elena's blood to an in-transition hybrid is the only way to complete the transition successfully. She wasn't meant to die at all, and you've actually helped me in my plans, Mystic Falls gang.
So thank you for that. Elena does wake up in a hospital bed after Klaus's revelation.
Sorry, I just remembered the scene. And I was like, again, with the horror movie aspect.
She wakes up, she sees a nurse, she's like, oh, what happened to me? And she's like, oh, you had a nasty fall, but don't worry, you'll be okay. Turns to look where she thinks there's an IV drip going into her. No, it's her blood leaving her body into a blood bag. She's like, what are you doing? Well, draining all of your blood, of course. Klaus says it's very important. Horrifying! Elena tries to fight, but the nurse injects her with an anesthetic and is like, no, now. Have a little rest. Everything will be fine. Fortunately, Damon comes to snatch her after scaring off Klaus with the name of Michael, which they've gotten through like shenanigans with Catherine, Jeremy, and Anna that we've talked about before. Michael is this hunter who supposedly Klaus and Rebecca were running from. He takes her back to Stefan Salvatore and, for the third time, gives her her own necklace back as like, I've got a present for you. And I'm always just like, what is this, guys? It feels like they are trying to cement, because again, this is the necklace that Stefan gave her, right? Way back when. It was the Vervain necklace. It was a symbol of like his protection of her from vampire threats, specifically from Damon at the time, because that was Damon's villain era.
Yeah.
And it's like, for whatever reason, we've decided in season 3 that this will be the item, and it kind of makes sense considering the like breaking off of Stefan. This will be the item that represents this like growing bond between Elena and Damon in the wake of Stefan's absence. But it just feels so shitty to be like, we're not gonna make a new thing for them. We're just gonna take the thing that already exists and holds meaning and write over that, you know? I just felt like that was really shitty. I don't know.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, he does hand it back to her a lot. It's also, I guess, and you're gonna hate this, but I have to put it out there.
Sure. No, go for it. I'm trying to be mature today.
Let me ruin the show more for you. I guess it's that the first? What, well, like, what's the, if we're saying first, second, third, what's the equivalent of 1.5?
The 1.5th.
The 1.5 selfless thing that Damon does regarding his relationship with Elena, because this is after he's like, I can compel Jeremy to forget about, you know, Vicky's vampirism and death, is that in season 2, he's like, look, I realize I'm in love with you. I'm going to confess it to you to make myself feel better, but then compel it away and give you my necklace. So maybe for Delena shippers and Delena writers, the necklace has now also become this dual object to represent that Damon, as much as he might be a bad person some of the time, a lot of the time, all of the time, is willing to be selfless where Elena Gilbert is concerned.
I guess the hang up for me will always be that I look on that moment as an incredibly selfish moment of Damon's, in which instead of returning this thing that protects her from people like him who want to do the thing he does in that scene, which is to compel her and manipulate her mind and wipe her memory of the moment that happens then. It's just like, I don't look at that scene as a positive. I look at that as one of the worst things he does to her, which is not a short list. So, yeah. I guess it makes sense if you're tracking it as a positive, that like, now I'm just always like, it didn't start well, and also this necklace isn't his to give back. So it's just, I don't know. Anyways, that's the moment. She doesn't take it back, is the thing, because in this moment she's like, Stefan's really gone, isn't he? And she asked Damon, where were you? Because Damon, after the fight they had the previous episode, just disappeared. And so this all happened while he was absent.
Oh yeah, because she went through it that night, and it would have helped to have one of her vampire bodyguards, or as Catherine would put it, one of her vampire boyfriends around.
Yeah, I think you said it before that she comes to rely on him in this season because Stefan is gone.
Yeah.
So he does start apologizing for being gone. He puts a hand on hers, and it becomes this kind of like tender moment. And then off screen, Stefan's voice. Well, isn't this cozy? Stefan, who has been compelled to turn off his humanity. So they were like, wait, what? What are you doing here? As it turns out, Klaus has instructed him to watch over Elena while he's gone, so he will be sticking around. Oh, entering into a very wild era that's honestly kind of fun, I can't lie, but we'll get into it.
The Bodyguard, starring Stefan Salvatore and Elena Gilbert.
Will Elena be singing I'll Always Love You?
Yes.
After that whole encounter, Klaus has made Stefan do something so awful to Elena, and that whole time she felt entirely helpless. She goes to Rick and says, Rick, I need you to start training me. I'm in my Kill Bill revenge era. I don't think I want to kill Stefan, because ultimately it's not like his fault, but also he is a threat now. It doesn't start off great because, and Rick tells her this, she's not particularly strong. She's, again, a small, tiny girl who's never needed to fight in her life. She's struggling to, like, use this contraption he built. He's like, you got a really small force.
That, like, dart gun thing was, like, it's, like, strapped to your forearm, and you're supposed to punch with it, and then it ejects the little stakes.
2 stakes?
She's like, it must be broken, like it's jammed or something, and then he punches and uses it perfectly, and he's like, you're too weak. You need to start lifting weight. Put some meat in those bones. And she's like, wow, don't sugarcoat it or anything.
Yeah, and he's like, listen, it's not a game. Like, this is real. I think he pulls apart a Vervain grenade and throws it at her and is like, surprise. And she's like, what? She grabs it, she throws it in the air and explodes. And she takes off that glove and throws it at him and says, this isn't a game to me, Rick. And he's like, yeah, I know it's not a game. It's serious. We are humans. We can do all we can, but vampires can just, like that, take our lives. So you need to be ready if you want to take them on. And so she's like, do you think I'm being stupid? Do you think like this is a waste of time? And Rick is like, the fact that she experienced what she did and got up today determined to not let it happen again makes her the strongest person he knows. And that she can do pretty much anything. Just the best thing to say. He's very, now that he's like, you know, she's kind of scraped him off the floor and like brought him back to like, okay, we're in this. He's saying some really good stuff. So she's like, okay, I can do this. Puts the steak glove back on with pride and is like, okay, let's keep going. Later that morning, she and the gals go to their first day of school. It's like episode 6 and only now is school starting. They're trying to put a bright spin on their like rough life situation and also relationship situation. Elena's boyfriend is compelled and has his humanity off. Caroline's boyfriend is a hybrid now and is acting weird as hell. Bonnie's boyfriend has been cheating on her with ghosts. It's not a good time for any of our girls in this era. It's so rough. So they're like, oh, God, sucks for this to happen. And Caroline will be like that, and Bonnie will be like, at least you don't have this happening. And then Elena, never want to be outsold, is like, it's mine and Stefan's anniversary. They turn and look at her and they're like, okay,
Oh, yeah.
you win, I guess.
They're like, this is the anniversary of the day we met. And I was like,
That's
firstly,
not your anniversary.
does your school start on the same day every year? Because I don't know a school system
Why?
where that works. Secondly, anniversary is when your relationship began. Your relationship did not begin like as a couple in episode
Until like
1.
the end of episode 2. So what are we talking about here? She's like, it's actually, technically, we met on the first day of school. So like, this is our anniversary. It's like, all right, Elena, I'm not going to say too much because you're going through a rough time, but this is wild. Damon calls and informs her that Rebecca's just sort of at his house now. Because Stefan's sticking around and Klaus just like disappeared on her, she's sticking close to Stefan. She's also floating around Tyler because Tyler's now like their little familiar as the newly minted hybrid. It's true! He's supernatural and yet somehow he is the original's familiar now. Stefan shows up at school, surprising everyone, and is like, listen, talking to Elena, if you're going to be at school, then I have to be at school because Klaus made me take care of you. So Rick tries to interpose. They're in the hallway at school and Stefan slams him against the locker when no one's looking particularly and says, it'll be in your best interest to not piss me off. See you in history class. And he goes off.
How insane would it have been if someone had been looking and they're like, this 18-year-old senior just slammed our history teacher against the locker like he was picking on some nerd.
Right. It's like, what is
And
this?
faced no consequences.
It's like, you could go two ways and be like, wow, this is insane and I should tell someone, or wow, any sort of respect I had for Mr. Saltzman is gone because he got pushed around by some kid. It's like, in the history class, Stefan moves someone out of his like usual seat. Again, he hasn't been at school for some time now. Pushes someone out of his seat so he can plop down next to Elena and he's like, hey you. The dynamic of Stefan and Elena when Stefan has his emotions off is bizarre and strangely fun. Because Elena's grappling with the fact that, like, he's acting completely different. Stefan is, like, he is different is the thing. He's very, like, cavalier, uninterested. And yet, on some level, he is compelled by Klaus to take care of her. But there will be moments where it, like, something will seep through where it's like he does seem concerned about Elena and what's going on. It's a very bizarre, like, dance that they're doing where it's like, he's emotionless, but there's a little sediment layer at the bottom where like something is still there.
I guess as we've said, the emotion switch is more like a dimmer. It just dials
it
down.
dims you down to
doesn't-
10.
It doesn't switch it off completely because these people have feelings. The only character who ever really acts as though they don't have feelings when their emotions are switched off was then criticized for being an example of bad acting. So I don't...
Oh no! Wait, who was that?
Isabel. Some people have said, oh, Isabel's performance is just very wooden. And we've seen this actress in other things and she does amazingly. So what was going on here? And I'm like, I guess...
Maybe that was the choice.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm an emotional vampire. I shouldn't be showing any sense of like, you can read me in some way. It's like, don't look for anything in me. I'm just here. And I'm doing things. And they barely matter to me really when I think about it. I thought it was a good choice. Because Mia Kushner, like you say, she's a long-standing actress. She was in The L Word. She was in a bunch of like mid-2000s stuff. That's fascinating. Okay. But yeah, there's a there's a cute scene at PE where she's running track and he like jogs over to her from somewhere on the side and is like, "Look at you, all fit." And also she's going to the bonfire. She's like, "Leave me alone." She tries to run away from him the other direction. He starts jogging backwards and keeps pace with her. It's like, it's insane, but it's kind of cute. I don't know why it feels weirdly cute to me, because it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like because you're so used to Stefan, like, when Stefan's around with Elena, it's usually good, right? And usually it's like, you know, they're in a relationship, he's protecting her, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, even though rationally, logically in the front of my head is like, his emotions are off, he's a wildly different person, and he's following orders, I guess because there's so much built up of Stefan and Elena up until this point, it's almost like we have him back in some way, because they haven't been together for 5 episodes.
Yeah. I guess chemistry is chemistry, and it's maintained even if the relationship dynamic is different. There's still this great chemistry between these characters and these actors, and that shines through even when it's like, oh, we're not playing love interests right now. We're playing someone antagonizing a victim, or someone who's trying to like ignore this this villain, I guess, right now, but who wants to be like playful.
Stalker, if we're being real. Also, in a strange way, it's like, with his emotions turned off, he's not as reserved as he usually is. He's not as restrained as he usually is. So he gets to interact with Elena without, like, worry and without, like, fear of
he's not
losing
the
himself.
brooding, sensitive boy that he is usually. Now he's like, tee-hee, I'm in my villain era, and I'm going to pick on you. And it's great because it happens a lot of the times in this show with everyone having their dark eras and emotionalist eras, where the actors or possessed eras, the actors are really having fun playing these characters. You see it when Catherine is pretending to be Elena. You see it when Klaus has possessed Alaric. Like, the performance that the actor is giving is like, oh, I get to be evil for a bit, and I'm really gonna lean into it and have fun.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit the chemistry thing you're saying, and then a lot of it is just like, it's fun to have Stefan like let loose a little bit. You know, it's about time. He's the only one who doesn't get to. Frustrated by this, because now he's like, are you going to the bonfire? If you're going, then I've got to be there. She goes to Rick to concoct a plan, because she's like, we've got to deal with him somehow. She's like, okay, I will lure him away from the bonfire. You shoot him up with Vervain from a distance. They've roped in Caroline. She's like, I'm preparing the old Forbes jail cell that we just have, because we've always been the cops.
You know that was a slave cell.
Yeah, she says jail cell, and I'm like, I don't think so.
This is Virginia.
I know where we are. They put Damon on Rebecca duty because, again, Rebecca has just been floating around Stefan. At the bonfire, Elena begins to get drunk. Stefan's there being like, whoa, lightweight, you know you can't take your alcohol, slow down. And she's like, I'm not taking flack from a blood addict, and downs the whole drink and leaves.
She's like, you think I'm gonna let the blood addict tell me how to drink? And I was like, damn, Elena, okay.
Crazy. Again, bizarre to see them in like antagonism, but also kind of fun. Because she gets to tap back too. He's like being antagonistic, she gets to snipe at him. It's like, let him cut loose, let him release some steam. It's been a long 2.5 seasons of them just struggling and being so strong for each other. They can release some steam.
Lovers to enemies.
Lovers to enemies arc. It turns out enemies to lovers hate it, don't want any of it. Lovers to enemies? Fun, interesting, a little bit tragic. Later, deep into the night, sort of away from the bonfire, she's on the bleachers at their football field because the bonfire is happening either on school property or near it. Stefan finds her and sees that she is wasted. She is sort of stumbling around, and he's like, come on, let me take you home. She's like, oh, gotta follow Klaus's orders, like his little lapdog. She's like draping herself on a guardrail. That's like 10 meters off the ground, or 15 meters off the ground, something like that. She's like, oops. Stefan is like dismissive at first, and then becomes worried as she starts to like go over it, and she pretends to, she like lets go and then grabs it quickly. It's like, oh, almost, and then she actually falls off, and he vamp rushes over and catches her. And there's this moment between them where they're like staring at each other, and she's like, I knew you'd catch me, and he's staring at her like frozen in this, where it's like, if he was just full gone, right, it wouldn't be a thing. It'd be like, I was just ordered to, and then drop her. But he stops in this moment and stares at her like kind of stunned. And then it's like, what now? And then he gets shot in the back by Rick with a vervain gun. He falls down. Elena gets out of his grasp as he lowers to the ground. Rick is like, are you all good? Because you look kind of drunk. And she's like, it's worth it. Let's get him out of here. Which is like, she actually got herself drunk to sell this. She wasn't just going to like fake it. I love her commitment. She's always like, I'll do what needs to be done. They put him in the trunk of Rick's car and get ready to go. Unfortunately, Ghost Vicky, who's been permeating these first few episodes of the Ghost arc, sets their car alight. In a bid to kill Elena for reasons we don't yet know. And they have to free Stefan and escape the car. Back at Chez Salvatore, Damon's applying first aid on Elena and making sure she's okay. And there's this charged moment between them. There's a lot of these moments where they like are talking and Damon, as always, is getting way too close. And then it's like uncertainty. What do we do? We're both in this moment, but how do we resolve it? And then Rick comes to see if Elena's ready to go home. On the way out, they run into Stefan, who asks her why she didn't let him die in the fire, because she could have just left him in the car. And she says she still has hope that even after everything he's done, he can find his humanity again. And Stefan gets real close to her and asks her if she has any idea how pathetic that makes her. Because of earlier, you're expecting him to like have this breakdown moment of like, I don't know if I'm strong enough, or like to show that like he is maybe crawling back. And he says this, Elena, not missing a beat. No, it doesn't make me pathetic. It makes me strong. And then she punches him in the gut. And we don't see it, but there's a sound and Stefan doubles over and she pulls back and you see she's wearing the steak glove and she's staked him in the gut. And then she takes it off. I don't know why she takes it off. I wish she walked out with it on hand. But she takes it off and gives it to Rick and walks out of the room. And Rick gives Stefan a look, which is this very like proud dad look, I thought. And then walks out after Elena. It is wonderful.
Lovely bookend.
Yeah, the fear is that because it is still Stefan, because she's holding on to that hope, she may not grapple with the fact that he is mostly gone and he is a danger. But that moment of like, I'm no fool. I am holding out that hope, but at the same time, I see you for who you are right now, and you're not going to get to me. And it also made me aware of the fact, because there will be several like scenes throughout the season where she and Rick are training, where she builds on this. And it's kind of wild that like, because remember when we were speaking, I mean, we've spoken about it outside of the podcast, but last session I said I had hoped that Elena's arc would be that she then becomes the hunter. And I thought that it was a thing that they followed more with Jeremy than with her, despite that first scene. Because we know that Rick's training her. We don't ever see Rick training with Jeremy. The first time we see Jeremy holding a weapon even is when he's hanging out with Tyler later this season in like episode 11 or something. So it's strange that like, I mean, it's not strange. Again, we've spoken about like in the Hunter Gilbert journal about the assumption of the masculinity in the lineage of hunters and the fact that Jeremy is Rick's like protege in many respects outside of just the hunting. And then of course, Jeremy gets the calling, right? He gets called to be one of the five and he needs something to do. They had to shuffle him off in season 3 because there was nothing to do for him. And this gives us something to do. But Elena's the one who's consistently training with Rick, who's building herself up, who's like learning how to fight. It's weird that she doesn't go hunter route before what happens at the end of the season. I don't know.
I guess it's because they had what happens at the end of season 3 in mind. Yeah. So it might have felt like they didn't need that.
A shame. They were like, it doesn't really matter for us to get her to that point because by then she'll just be super strong and super evolved. So what does it matter? It's like, all right, damn. She doesn't get to be Buffy? Fair. In any case. Ghost World! Elena wants Jeremy to try and reach out to Lexi on the other side with his medium powers so that she can get the Stefan rehab plan. Thanks to the machinations of Esther, though, ghosts from the other side are already getting a foothold in the material world. Bonnie does a spell that her Grams points her to reveal veiled matter, and that makes all the ghosts visible. As a result of that, Elena walks in on Jeremy and Anna kissing. But also, Lexi runs into Stefan on the street and snatches him, so we know she's back. Elena gets a call from Caroline and Bonnie. They tell her, okay, Grams knows that a door's been opened to the other side because of one, Bonnie bringing Jeremy back to life at the end of season 2, and 2, again, Esther has been pulling strings and making things happen, including Vicky attacking them the previous day to try and gain a foothold into the material world. That's what's kicked this door open. Grams has told Bonnie how to close it, and it involves destroying Esther's talisman, which is that iconic necklace that Elena wears. She tells them it's with Damon, go ask him. I've got to deal with another problem here. She cuts the call, and then she starts chewing out Jeremy and Anna, which... valid. Because again, Jeremy is fully with Bonnie at this point. She then heads out of that back room of the grill and runs into Lexi, who's like, bitch, I don't know how long I'm here for, but let's move. I've got to show you how to do Ripper Detox 101. They go off to where she stashed Stefan, which is in the old city jail that Caroline was talking about. So I guess it is a jail that's just defunct now? I don't know. Lexi has Stefan stashed there. He's tied up to a chair, and she starts running Elena through her usual process. Dry him out, get into his head, try and make him feel something. If that doesn't work, physical pain to try and snap him into a state where he's willing to feel something. Once Lexi starts staking him though, because Elena's been taking the whole thing very well at first, she's like, no, you go for it, because Stefan's like, Elena, please. And Elena's like, no. I just don't trust you. Lexi, keep going. But when Lexi has to start staking him and like over and over again in different places to try and make him feel, she's like, I've got to step out. Actually, this is making me very uncomfortable. From there, she sees the chaos that's now brewing outside. It's late at night. And because ghosts are all back and visible and able to interact with the real world, all the tomb vampires who burned at the end of season 1 are back and are attacking founding families. Anna is busy playing Hide the Talisman here. So eventually she figures that one out and she's like, Jeremy, get your girlfriend to give the talisman. What the hell? She has a tough love talk with Jeremy about letting Anna go because she's a ghost and he can't love a ghost forever. When Anna does come back, compared to earlier when she was just like chewing her out, she does soften a bit and say, Anna, you're holding him back from his life and you know that. He's just started living again. So Anna gives up the necklace. Elena tells Jeremy to get it to who needs to get it and go sort his shit out with Bonnie before she goes back to Lexi to tell her, we're about to run out of time. When Lexi leaves, she tells Elena that Stefan is still in there. She just has to break through to him. And Elena tells her that, it's okay, I know what to do now. Lexi, you can be free. Which I think potentially in this moment, Lexi was supposed to like find peace because she knows that
it feels like
Stefan is in good hands. That's what that scene is framed as. But of course, we know we'll see her later in season 4 and she's just been sticking around. Too good for any of us, Lexi Branson. From her conversation with Jeremy, though, Elena tells Stefan, look, I'm going to head out because I've got a dozen other things to go handle than you. But I haven't lost hope for you. I can't do anything to help you, though, if you don't get your hope back. You need to fight for this or else you're going to lose me forever. And Stefan does seem affected in that moment because, I mean, Lexi has done the work of running like 9 months of no blood through his head and bringing him to a place where he can actually be reasoned with. Which, solid. Great to have mental powers when you're running a hyperbolic rehab chamber.
Hyperbolic rehab chamber.
I mean... 9G in your brain.
I love that it's Elena's own words to Jeremy and Anna that make her realize how she's been acting. Because Jeremy's like, yeah, I know I'm with Bonnie, but like, you know, I love Anna. Like, I've always loved her. But it is what it is. Like, and I'm like, I understand, Jeremy. You didn't actually break up with this person. She died. You were still very much in love with her. I get it.
Bonnie says as much, which is such a fair reaction. She's like, I get it. Both your girlfriends died on you suddenly. It would be strange if you weren't holding something for them.
And then he like qualifies it with saying, I love her and I've always loved her. Elena says, but it's not real. Like, she died. Are you really going to love a ghost for the rest of your life? So what she says to Stefan at the end, when she says, if you don't fight for it, you'll lose me forever, she then says, I won't love a ghost for the rest of my life.
Oh, so rough. And I mean, it is the reality of the situation, right? Is that like, this is where we are now. Stefan is who he is now. It's no longer as important how it happened, right? Just because we're constantly dealing with what the present problem is. But I just, again, it just sucks so much that Stefan just got screwed over so bad. He just got ruined in the first half of the season. Next episode, thanks to a ghost mason who led Damon during the ghost presence to this subterranean caves that have carvings in them. Rick shows Elena the carvings and says that he's translated them and it's the Michelsons' names, including Michael, who they learn is Papa Original, and that he's the one who can kill Klaus.
There's also Eric and Aaron, whoever the hell those two are.
We'll never know.
They were cousins. I don't know. Maybe Michael had siblings, and those were the original kids' cousins.
They were just hanging around. They're not important to the central plot. Michael's like, I barely liked my brother. Don't worry about it. He doesn't need a place on the wall. And to be fair, they are like working through this. They're not doing so hot, which is why, because they're unable to pass the full history from the pictograms, Elena's like, okay, I think the best plan is to go to the source. And she goes to find Rebecca to hear from the horse's mouth what happened 1,000 years ago. Rebecca, who inexplicably staying in Mystic Falls and going to high school, Elena finds her and shows her the picture of her name in that cave and asks about Michael. She deflects and tries to leave, and Elena says, okay, cool, then I guess I'll just go and wake him. Rebecca tries to hide that this is also like immediately staggering her, and she says, you're bluffing. You don't even know where he is. And Elena's like, okay, then who's the desiccated corpse in that crypt in Charlotte? Keep in mind, Elena was never there. Never saw Michael for herself, but you know what's important is that she has that information, and she leveraged it because she's a mastermind. So Rebecca's like, no, I'm leaving. I don't care. And she goes off. Elena's like, she'll come around. Damon doubts her, Rick doubts her, and then Elena gets a text from Bex. She meets with Rebecca at like Klaus's free-floating mansion that they just have in town. Bex makes a show of power using one of the girlies that she's compelled to be her like wardrobe mannequins, reminding Elena who the real threat is here. Despite how she wants to mouth off, Rebecca's the one who's powerful. She does send those girls off though, before starting to divulge some family history, their Nordic settlement in pre-Mystic Falls, the fact that they were neighbors with the wolves, the death of their brother Henrik at the hands of the wolves, which is like, okay.
Inciting incident.
It's like, yeah, inciting incident. Why were you out in the night? Okay, why were they getting close to the wolves when you were warned? You know, I'll always harp on it. Y'all are just starting shit and y'all can't finish it.
Klaus felt supernaturally drawn to his people. And Henrik, the young, impressionable baby, was like, okay, I'll go with you.
I look up to you, my big brother. That's the first mistake. Don't look up to your big brothers. They get you killed.
It's crazy that we never hear him speak. Not a word leaves that boy's mouth.
Never once. He just shows up as a dead boy. He shows up as a little cute running around Toodle Pip, and then he's dead. That's it. But that is why their parents turned them into vampires. Elena gets a phone call from Damon that interrupts their conversation. I cannot remember what it was about.
I think it's that Damon and Alaric have discovered the symbol for hybrid, and they're like, oh, it's over a bleeding heart. Klaus is the one who killed Esther, not Michael, as Rebecca had told them she believed.
The Klaus thing they find out at the end, and I know because Elena's the one who put it together. I wrote it down.
Then I have no idea why Damon would be calling her.
Yeah, this is why I was like, if it was important, I would have written it down. So, I just wrote, he calls her, and then she gets back to her conversation, so who cares? When they get back to it, Rebecca has like gotten out of like this emotional stupor, and she's being coy again and being like, I've got all the information. Lena's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll leave because you're not going to tell me anything. You're just bored and looking for someone to push around. And then as she's leaving, Rebecca starts sharing about the necklace that belonged to her mother. And Elena has this little smirk while she's facing away from Rebecca because, again, she's orchestrating. She's manipulating. She deals with these originals like they're nothing. It's crazy. She'll negotiate with Elijah because she respects Elijah. And sometimes she'll manipulate him because, he's, where Elena's concerned, it's a weak spot, unfortunately for him, which we'll also talk about that in a little bit. But Rebecca, she realizes, listen, she stuck around and started going to high school for whatever reason, so clearly there's some part of her that's still like a teenage girl. I can work with that. And she's actively working with that, and I think that's really cool. Yeah, she tells her more about like Esther being a witch and being the one to turn them, all the like strengths and weaknesses they have as originals. When she finally says that like, you stuck around with Klaus this whole time, but he's like awful to you. And he's just horrible in general. Like, why do you stick around with him? And Rebecca says, he's my brother and I am immortal. Should I spend an eternity alone instead? which is very depressing in my opinion. But I'm not an original, so what do I know?
We can talk about it in the originals episode, but it's like the Michaelsons have been through a lot together. Maybe there are just like some bonds of trauma that have formed there.
Like, at this point, who else have we got? But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, that is a really rough reason for you to be stuck with this person. It's like, oh, there's no one else who is as old as you and will be alive at the end of time. Depressing. Rebecca chases her out and is like, I'm done with you. And Elena goes to recon with Rick, who has been joined by Bonnie. They have been working on the pictographs. And Bonnie has brought the talisman that has refused to die. She blew it up. It formed itself again. Crazy
It
stuff.
melted away and then just reconstituted. It was like watching something get inflated. Like it just popped back into shape.
Esther with her magic moves. Elena is the one to put together the real story about who killed Esther based on the symbols of the wall. Because they see the hybrid symbol and she sees the bleeding heart and she's like, oh, no, Michael killing Esther is a lie. It's Klaus who killed her and blamed it on Michael. And she goes back to Rebecca and tells her that. In this very heated, like, back and forth of her trying to convince her, Rebecca being like, no, you're lying, you're just trying to turn me against my brother. But Elena says the right things to, like, make Rebecca realize in her own mind and accept, oh no, this is the only truth that makes sense. Rebecca's like rushing to attack her and then breaks down at the last second crying. I do find it interesting that, like, learning that Elena said, I'm gonna go tell Rebecca, partly because I'm hoping it will disally her from Klaus, and we have one less person to worry about since we're trying to kill him. But also because she wants Rebecca to know the truth. She does feel for Rebecca and wants her to be freed from this, like, one-sided loyalty of their relationship, Rebecca's and Klaus's. And this is what I was talking about the growth of Elena, is that, like, she still has those empathy guns in her pockets, but she's got a new set of guns now. And sometimes she's trading them off, sometimes she's working with them in tandem. When she goes home into her room, where Damon is just in her bed, he shares with her that Michael found him and Stefan, because he's released Stefan in one of his useless plans to try and, like, get Stefan, like, back on the rails. They've got Michael now, and Stefan might also be willing to work with them in this plan to kill Klaus. She tells him that she potentially has gotten Rebecca on their side too. And she says that she learned that Rebecca is just a girl who lost her mother too young and loves blindly and recklessly, even if it consumes her. And then she turns to look at Damon dramatically. And it's like, oh, very clear parallel, I guess, that you're drawing here. And of course, we have to hammer home that this thing between them is building and that it will consume her. And then she tells him if they're gonna get Stefan back, she's not gonna be the reason that they break through to him. It won't be because he loves her that he'll come back. It'll be for Damon, because he loves his brother. And I want to put a pin in that one for later. Next episode begins the Kill Klaus plan. The main trio hatches a plan to lure Klaus to town with the news of Michael's death. And Elena has to dagger Michael so that their story is technically true. Again, only a human being can dagger an original without themselves dying. Or rather, if a vampire daggers an original, they would die. They don't really get into if another supernatural being does it.
I'm assuming they can, like a wolf or a witch.
Yeah, so they have her dagger Michael so that their story is technically true, so that Stefan can dodge Klaus's compulsion if he asks him to confirm that Michael's dead. Crazy that they get away with it, but, you know, they don't. So I guess not that crazy. The next morning, she has a conversation with Bonnie, who is going through some Jeremy drama. When Elena tells Bonnie that she can talk to her about it, Bonnie says, not really, because Jeremy's her baby brother. She can be mad at him for a little bit, but she can't be mad the way that Bonnie's mad, and she shouldn't have to be. This puts concern in Elena's mind that Rebecca might turn on them, because despite what Klaus has done, despite her learning he killed her mother, he's still her brother. She does some calculus real quick and is like, there's too many variables in this plan of ours. The systems of equations are not matching. Something's gonna go wrong. There's a tense conversation with her, Stefan, Damon about the plan and whether it'll go smoothly. Damon's like, don't worry, I've got a secret contingency that I'm telling you I have, but I won't tell you what it's about. Elena's like, Stefan's the one we should be worried about, given that he's compelled by Klaus. And Stefan argues that he's the least likely to be a problem because he wouldn't be held back by humanity, the thing that has ruined some of their plans in the past. And so
Side eyes Elena.
side eyes Elena, and Elena's mad in that, but later she's like, damn, he might be right. I've got to be hardcore.
And you know what's funny? This is not just a callback to the things Elena has done in the past out of compassion. It's also a foreshadowing for later on in the season.
Yeah.
It's like, Elena, you and your damn bleeding heart.
Like, you make some brilliant moves, and then you'll go, well, no, we can't kill this person because, no, I feel bad. It's like, no, bitch, they need to die. You can't hold back. They're 1,000 years old, and they don't care about you. Blessing and a curse. She goes to where Rebecca is to check in with her about the plan. She's got the empathy lasso out. She's like, thank you for helping us. This must be difficult for you. And she asks if Rebecca's okay. Rebecca, to be fair, is very distraught and emotional in this moment about being involved in Klaus's potential murder. Elena, seeing this, also having Stefan's words about the hindrance of her humanity like in the back of her head, she reels herself in closer with that empathy lasso. She gets right up to Rebecca and says, hey, I wanted you to have this. Gives her back her mother's necklace. And Rebecca's like, my mother's necklace. And Elena's like, may I? And Rebecca turns around and puts her back to her. And Elena's like, oh, arms over the shoulder, put on the necklace. You look beautiful. Stab! Dagger in Rebecca's back. Oh, this girl. I tell you. When she's on, she's on. She is trickery and deceit. I love her.
She is the heir of Catherine Pierce.
She really is. And it's like, where season 2 she was learning the art of the deal, this is when she learns the art of like, sometimes you've got to throw some people under the bus. Sometimes you've got to make some betrayals. And she feels awful about it the whole way through, which is like, you know, there is something to that where it's like, you are making these pragmatic choices, you are agonizing over them, and that is a symbol that you are still holding on somewhat to your humanity, but she is making those choices. So it's wild to see that like journey for her. She does look at Rebecca in the mirror and say, I'm so sorry. And you can see in her face she's very upset by this, but lowers Rebecca's collapsing corpse, desiccating corpse onto the ground. I don't know how she lays Rebecca down when the dagger's in her back.
And I guess because later on when Rebecca is in a coffin, the dagger's now in her chest. So I guess she pulled it out.
No.
Reapplied
I think
some
it's still
ash.
in the back, but she's lying down now. Rebecca's lying down in that cellar. So it's only in this scene where it's like, how did she fall? How did you get her? Maybe she falls forward. I don't know. I remember that she's lying down because it's really embarrassing for Rebecca. She's just slumped over, her back in the air.
I mean, later on when we see Rebecca return to her coffin, the dagger is. Oh no, it's because
when Klaus gets her.
She gets re-daggered, I think it is.
Yeah, that's a re-daggering. She's like, I'm sorry, I can't leave anything to chance. Homecoming, which was happening at the school, of course, that's like the event that's happening right now, gets moved to Tyler's house because of some freak flooding at the school. Elena offers to be Matt's backup date to Homecoming now that she has daggered Rebecca. And they learn that Klaus is at the party that Tyler's throwing at his house for Homecoming. And it's not actually Homecoming, it's Michael's wake, which he is throwing at the orders of Klaus. Klaus does find Elena outdoors at the party some point later and probes her about Michael. She keeps her cool pretty well, and he's like, listen here, you little... I know you and your Scooby-Doo gang are planning something, and you can give it your best shot. Cut to when Michael arrives in the flesh, shows up to the front doorstep and is like, Klaus, come meet me. Compels some of his hybrids to his side. They bring Elena to Michael as a hostage to force Klaus to come out of this house now, because this has all messed up the original plan that they had to meet him where they are. For him to meet them where they are. Oh, that was rough. There's a back and forth of barbs between Michael and Klaus, and a single tear from Klaus in a very impressive performance. And then Michael stabs Elena in the back, and she assumedly dies. Damon, surprise, attacks Klaus, knocks him down, has the white oak stake, and then behind Michael, Elena, or rather, now we realize Catherine, wakes up, pulls out 2 wolfsbane grenades, goes ba-boom, and throws them at the background hybrids, exploding, scattering shower. They're all down. The whole time Elena was at home. Because the scene where Elena tells Matt, how do you feel about a backup date? You assume she's talking about herself. She then sends Catherine with Matt for this plan, because she's like, we've got the new contingency. The contingency fails because, of course, Stefan pushes Damon out of the way and rescues Klaus. Klaus, who then kills Michael dead with the white oak stake. And in return, he undoes his compulsion of Stefan and leaves him a free man. Back at Chez Salvatore, Damon's pissed. He throws a glass of alcohol into the fireplace because his plan failed. Elena's like, we had everything down. I don't understand. Like, why would he do this? And they're upset because they're not going to get Stefan back. And Elena holds his face and is like, Damon, it's okay. We've survived so many other things. We'll survive this. We'll just have to let him go. And that's how that episode ends. Of course, in the background, Stefan is snatching Klaus's coffins and planning revenge. Elena starts the next episode off jogging and sees some rando on the street who seems to be following her. Hood up, earphones in, really weird. She picks up her pace. She's like, okay, let me get back to my block. She's like running at a certain point because this guy is really following her. She gets to a block corner. She looks around, sees nobody, and is like, oh, okay. Maybe I was going crazy. Maybe I'm paranoid. Turns around to go to a house and suddenly there's the guy right in front of her. This man pulls off his hood, pulls out his earphones and is like, oh, sorry, I should have watched where I was going. You have a nice day. Like he didn't just turn a corner to go around the block and run into her in front of her house. Insane. She's talking to Bonnie about this later. She's like, maybe I'm being paranoid about Klaus. Bonnie's telling Elena, yeah, no, I don't know. I'm also off. I've been having this recurring dream about these coffins. They don't know about the coffins yet. Elena calls up Jeremy, gets to voicemail. She's worried because he's been spiraling. After the ghost drama, him and Bonnie have broken up. And now she's learned he's been fired from the grill because he didn't show up for like 2 shifts in a row or something. She flirts with Damon while she's making sure he's doing okay. And then Klaus shows up at the grill. And he shows up with the guy who was chasing Elena that morning. As it turns out, a hybrid. So, a lot of gaslighting going on here, but anyways. Klaus is looking for Rebecca and is looking to coerce them to find Stefan because, he divulges, Stefan has snatched up the coffins that have his family members in them in his plot for revenge. This is also the episode where Elena and Rick have that lunch or dinner. It's like afternoon time, I think, with Jeremy. They're like, Jeremy, hey, we know you've kind of been all over the place, but can you just sit with us for one time and like have a little dinner, have some family time? Which made me think of the fact that Elena ditches her family time for that bonfire in the that night of the car crash. I was like, you know what it's like, girlie. You know what it is to be that age. He tells them he's just hanging with Tyler, and they're like, Tyler, who works for Klaus Tyler? The man trying to kill all of us, Tyler? And he's like, stop being so dramatic. And it's like, Jeremy, what the hell are you talking about? They won't let him go out, and he's like, okay, fine. Tyler, you can come into our house that you haven't been invited into. And Tyler comes in, and the 4 of them have to have this awkward meal. It's then that they're like grilling him about, you know, what it means to be sire to Klaus, and the fact that he actually doesn't have free will and clearly has not thought about it in any great capacity, because Tyler doesn't think about much in great capacity. After Tyler leaves, Jeremy gets a phone call. When he puts the phone down, they're like, who's that? And he's like, nobody. And he sits down. Rick and Elena go into the kitchen and they're talking. They're like, what does this mean? What's the situation with Tyler? Can we trust him? He doesn't seem to understand. They turn around. Jeremy's gone. Like, okay, where did he go? They look on the table. His Gilbert ring is sitting on the table. They're like, what? They go outside. They see him standing in the middle of the road. Here comes a speeding car coming to hit him. Rick runs and shoves him out of the way and takes the hit. And he like skids across the road. He gets all messed up and he dies in this car crash. He, of course, has his own Gilbert ring, so he will come back. The driver of the car is Tony, who's like, oh, there I go, running into people again. I hate this man, just like his boss. Oh my god. He's just here for this whole episode too. They really were just like, you just have to deal with Tony. Elena realizes that Tyler was hanging out with Jeremy to get his vervain bracelet off and then compel him to do what Klaus asked. Jeremy has a big blowout about how they need to leave town and escape this madness or else they're not getting out alive. And Elena, who, of course, with her family threatened, is like, I need to meet with Klaus. I need to bow to his terms because I'm not letting anyone get hurt because of me. Or Stefan, apparently, who's pulling some shit. She gets Barney to tell her where the coffins are, and her and Damon go to find them. They get to that house that has the 100 dead witches. Damon's daylight ring gets unspelled because the 100 dead witches don't like him. Elena has to go in by herself to go talk to Stefan. She tells him what's happened, and he says, no, I'm not giving up the coffins. And she's like, even though Jeremy almost died, he's like, not my problem. She slaps him across the face. First time she's ever done that to Stefan, which is like, obviously, but like, it really does sort of put into stark contrast where we are with these two. And it's like, then you can go to hell for all I care, and leaves.
That's why I said lovers to enemies arc for these two.
Breaking my heart. She goes back to the house because she's left Rick there, but she's like, he'll come back from the dead. He's got the ring. He comes back. He's still in very bad shape, coughing up blood. She calls an ambulance to come fetch him. Tony shows up again and is like, how about we just leave him here for a bit? He compels the paramedics to leave, and he's attempting to force Elena to like invite him in because he's the only thing that can save Rick's life right now. But his punk ass gets shot in the back by Jeremy with a crossbow, who immediately goes into the kitchen, grabs a meat cleaver, chops his stupid head off with one swing.
I love it.
Oh, so satisfying. He's learned from Tyler that's one of only 2 ways to kill a hybrid. While Jeremy has Rick at the hospital, Elena goes to Chez Salvatore and has Klaus meet her there. She offers him Rebecca in exchange for her brother being left unharmed, which, though Klaus says is a bargain, he agrees to. She tells him that she's the one who daggered Rebecca, and that Rebecca will come after her when she wakes up. And Klaus is like, I can control Rebecca. Again, hate that, but it's true. Klaus is still holding the Stefan and coffin situation on Elena's head and is like, you have no shortage of loved ones to put in danger, so it's only a matter of time before Stefan gives me what I want. She tells him, Stefan doesn't care about me anymore, because she's just learned that for a fact today. You made sure of that. You turned him into a monster, and now it's your problem. And just as a stinger at the end of that, she says, oh, by the way, Rebecca knows that you're the one who killed your mother, so good luck with that. You can let yourself out. Oh!
I love who she's growing into this season.
Oh, there's so much power. She talks to these, like, she recognizes the danger. She recognizes the threat. But in a situation with the originals, she talks a pretty big game. And she usually can back it up. I respect that so much. Damon comes back to check on her after he's disposed of Tony. She's like, Jeremy shouldn't have to live like this, having to chop off some guy's head like it's another Tuesday. So she and Rick, as it turns out, it wasn't just a solo decision. She and Rick have Damon compel him to leave for Denver, Colorado, and to never think twice about Mystic Falls and go live a better life. So it's been done. She's on the doorstep ruminating about, like, is this the right choice? Especially given the last time she did this. And Damon's like, don't worry, it'll be fine. She thanks him for his help and for just, generally being here the whole time. And again, there's a charged moment. To my surprise, Damon chooses that moment to go, you should know, Stefan hasn't actually betrayed us. He just saved my life by stopping that plan with Michael, because Klaus had given orders to his side hybrids that even if he is to die, they must then kill Damon afterwards. So Stefan and Catherine orchestrated what they did, disrupting his plan to save his life. Still in there, despite everything, Stefan is in there and he cares on some level.
Points for Damon for his honesty.
1 point.
And for not using this growing rift between Elena and Stefan to further endear himself when she was getting the wrong idea about Stefan's loyalties.
I will say, then of course, it's the moment when Damon says his thing about, oh, I'm an idiot for thinking knowing I wouldn't have to feel guilty about wanting Elena because Stefan was now bad. So that makes it like, okay. And he says, brother's girl and all. And it's like, oh, so you know how messed up this is.
I mean, they're broken up at that point.
No, for sure. But like, Damon has wanted her from well before this breakup era. So it's like, okay, so on some level you know that this is messed up. But I digress. Now it's fine. It's strange that you're like, oh, this and that. This is the perfect time. He starts to leave, and then he doubles back and says, no, if I'm going to feel guilty about something, I'm going to feel guilty about this. And then sweeps Elena into a big old kiss on her doorstep.
Which is, I guess, their first proper kiss.
Certainly the only one she remembers.
There was the one that was actually Catherine, and then the one he compelled away, and then the one where it was like he was on his deathbed and she kissed him goodbye on
A
the
kiss
lips.
goodbye. Which I will count. It is a peck, but you know, this is their first like proper kiss, again, that she remembers. They have had a proper kiss before. Next episode, Elena's kickboxing in Rick's loft, assumedly releasing some frustrations about now the situation she's in, post Damon kiss. Later that morning, she has to tell Bonnie that she had Jeremy compelled to leave town. Bonnie is alarmed. They throw Caroline this really sad small birthday party, and she's like super morose about like Tyler drama and the morbidness of the fact that she's now frozen at 17, even though it's her 18th birthday. So Elena has the idea to it's her, Caroline, Bonnie, and Matt. They go off and visit the crypts at night, and they throw Caroline a funeral to say goodbye to her old life. So there's this lovely moment where they give her like this eulogy, and it's really cute. During the party, Caroline is texting, and Elena's poking fun at her because she's texting Tyler, even though they're like I don't know if they're broken up or they're on a break or what's happening with them. So she's like, come on now. And Caroline's like, let me do my thing. Let me be responsible for once. Bonnie's like, come on, you can't control what everyone does all the time. It's like, oh. Buddy! Shady! She's right, though. Bonnie's like, I'm sorry, but, like, I'm not happy about the situation. You've taken away Jeremy's choice and, you know, a lot of valid points about, like, what has happened. And then she leaves because she's like, I don't want to put a damper on the party. Have fun without me. Later, Elena and Matt are having a little drinking moment where she confides in him that Bonnie is probably right, but she doesn't know what else to do to keep Jeremy safe. The two of them then go off to find Caroline because Tyler came to the party to be like, hey girl, I know I've been a whole situation off on the side with Klaus, but I miss you and I love you. So they went off to talk. They're going out to try and find her. And they're joking around about the foul ghost, and they're just being all around knuckleheads. And then suddenly someone throws Matt into a wall. Boom! Slam into a wall, collapse. Someone puts a hand over Elena's mouth. And then you see that it's Stefan. And it's like, huh? What's going on now? He snatches her and drives her off in his cherry red convertible. When Damon calls her phone, he takes it and informs Damon that he's removing the doppelganger from the chessboard to force Klaus's hand. So immediately the tension's like up to 100 in the episode. Elena's like, what are you gonna do? Lock me up somewhere? Keep me hostage? And he says, no, baby girl. I'm thinking I'd turn you into a vampire. She freaks out and she starts shouting at him. She's like, stop the car. He doesn't. He calls Klaus, puts his phone on the little deck in his car, puts him on car audio. I don't know when he souped up his car to have like modern tech because this car's from the 50s, as far as I can remember. Klaus is like, you're bluffing, mate. Stefan's like, okay. Bites into his fist, force feeds Elena his blood. And this, I think, despite all earlier moments, this is the lowest point for Stelena. This is like, almost veers into we can't come back from this, right? Because he knows she doesn't want to be a vampire. This is the thing Damon did to her in season 2 that made her hate him for those last couple of episodes. To do this is such a betrayal. And then on top of that, as they're driving, the whole time he's mouthing off to Klaus on the phone, he's driving all the way onto good old Wickery Bridge before the man says he'll call off his hybrids. He is speeding up every time Klaus says you're not going to do it. And then Klaus is like, fine, I'll call off my hybrids, whatever. Elena, close to tears, is like, how could you do this? You know my parents died here. I almost died here. You're the one who saved me from that. Stefan's like, I needed you to be genuinely afraid to sell the severity of the situation. She's like, after everything, all that matters is this thing with you and Klaus. And Stefan says, in a very like low and like defeated tone. Getting revenge on Klaus is all he has left. And Elena shouts, "You had me." And Stefan, harking back to what he was saying in the very first episodes, is like, "I lost you the minute I left town. There's no way that we can get this back." He leaves her on Wickery Bridge and drives off. And I don't know if there's anything more to say to that. At this point, right, because the humanity thing is in question. He was compelled in episode 5. There were brief moments between that and episode 10, which is when Klaus uncompels him, where it seems like Lexi said, he's still in there. He might be fighting in there, but his emotions are off. It might be this moment that does trigger it to be like, now I'm making my way back. But I'm always like, was he in... What was his situation when the scene went down? I don't know. Maybe that's a question for a Stefan episode.
We can discuss it in the Stefan episode. It was probably because what often happens with these humanity switches is the humanity starts to leak back in slowly. When Elena goes through her arc, Stefan says that the first emotions he started to feel whenever he would switch his off would be anger and resentment and guilt. He's definitely hyper focusing on Klaus, probably because that rage that he feels towards Klaus is the easiest emotion to allow himself to feel. Because he couldn't want revenge on Klaus if he was currently numb to all his feelings and didn't really care about anything.
Yeah. And also there's a conversation with Catherine where she tells him, "You want to do something, get mad and get even." So, not to put it on Catherine, Stefan's a grown man, but there was that moment of you know what you could do. Damon comes to fetch her. When they get home, he spends a minute trying to deflate the tension by saying that Stefan has actually won a round for them in this against Klaus, and that he's impressed by how good Stefan is at playing the better villain. He then softens and asks Elena if she really is okay, and he's holding her face up by her chin, and she for a second is in it and then closes her eyes and she says, "You can't kiss me again." Damon says, "I know." She says, "It's not right." And he says, "No, it's right. Just not right now." And that is a moment where I felt what you were describing, where it's on an island, nothing else considered. It's just these two figures here in this moment. This is a really good moment. Considering the circumstances sans anything else, just in the relationship dynamic, that's a really good moment. It's very confident, it's very fair, and it's very I'll give you the space you need to get to the conclusion I'm already at. That this works and could continue to work. If only Damon didn't suck. They give Jeremy a farewell at the end of the episode. They ship him off to the Midwest. Right at the end, she asks Matt to meet her at Wickery Bridge. She talks about something he said earlier about all of them being stuck. Him talking about the rest of the group outside of himself. And she says she does feel stuck. She's holding on to this version of herself that was supposed to die over this bridge that night. And Matt tells her she's not that girl anymore. And it's okay if she wants to let her go. Elena's worried that she's disappointed that version of herself. She's disappointed her parents. And Matt giving her a really affirming statement of as someone who knew that other girl, you're doing a lot better than you think right now. And then he gives her an impromptu funeral eulogy situation for Elena's past self, which I think is very lovely. Matt really rises to the fore in this season as a rock for Elena. Because again, Stefan's not there. Damon, it's complex. So, we can't always be relying on Damon to be the rock because there's all this tension and this potential romance. It's what's happening there? Next episode, Bonnie shares with Elena what she and Stefan have going on with the coffins. Stefan, not happy about this. Bonnie says, "Listen, I need help because I need to find my mother, Miss Abby Bennett Wilson, because we need her help to unlock this sealed coffin because one of the coffins has been sealed shut." Elena and Bonnie road trip to North Carolina to find Abby. And Elena is largely playing support for Bonnie in this one, which is long overdue, frankly. And yet it is in this episode that we learn from Abby that she was best friends with Miranda Gilbert. And that was the reason she left town. She left to lure Michael out of town, who was here to attack or to snatch Elena, the doppelganger. And she desiccated him in a crypt in Charlotte. Elena at some point goes outside to give Abby and Bonnie a chance to talk. Out in just like hot North Carolina desert, I guess. I don't know the region. Stefan appears because he has seen the research they were doing at her house to like find Abby and knows where they are. Elena has lied to him and said, we're going to hang out at the coffin until the sheriff gives us more leads because Stefan is being very overbearing about this plan. They have a big old fight. Jamie comes to see if everything's fine. Jamie is Abby's ward. Stepson, I don't know what the hell's going on there. To Jamie's credit, it's giving very much girl and her abusive boyfriend that she can't escape. Because they're fighting. Elena tells him to leave. He steps back like he's gonna leave, and then he comes back. He's like, no, I've got to make sure you're okay. Stefan reaches out to choke him and then compels him to get out before he does something he regrets. And the man goes off. And Elena says to Stefan, in this tone that I can only describe as like the tone you would use as a teacher on a rotten child that you're just fed up with. She says, I don't think you realize how bad you've gotten. It's just the most insane delivery. Unfortunately, Jamie comes back with a shotgun, which shows that the compulsion apparently did not work. Turns out he's already been compelled by a hybrid that Klaus sent in advance. How did Klaus find out where Abby lives? I'm not super sure. Do we ever get that answer?
I don't think so. Klaus has connections.
You know, yeah. Well-connected man. He shoots Stefan point blank with a wooden buckshot shotgun, drops him to the ground, grabs Elena, ties her up against a post. Meanwhile, just around the corner, Abby has roofied Bonnie and is shoving her into the back of her car and is about to drive off. Crazy stuff going on at the Wilson house. The Bennett Wilson house. Wait, who's Wilson? Isn't that... because it's Rudy Hopkins. Where did she get Wilson? Or did she just...
I think...
fake name?
I don't know whether it's a fake name or whether she married someone afterwards or whether Wilson is the name of Sheila's baby daddy with whom she had.
What?
Abby? It's not clear.
So many questions. Oh my god. Bennett family always being considered last. It gets dark out. Elena's trying to like snap her ropes against this warped bracket of like a gutter pipe that's on this post. Stefan is still in the process of dying from the buckshot. It takes a lot longer than Lily, I will say. So to be fair to Lily's death scene, Lily died a lot sooner than Stefan's there from like afternoon to late night. And Elena does this brilliant thing where she's speaking to Jamie, who's like watching over them with a shotgun, and she gets all the parameters of his compulsion. She keeps asking him, what were you told to do? Because he's like, I don't know why I'm holding his gun. I don't know why I have to shoot him, but I have to do this. And she's like, what do you have to do? And he lists, keep Stefan down until I hear that Abby has successfully done what she needs to do. She's like, what did they say about me? And he said, you're to be left unhurt. And Elena's like, great, I can work with this. And she's like, well, you know, these ropes that you've tied me up with are hurting me. They're so damn tight. And he's like, oh shit, okay, I'm compelled to make sure she's not hurt, so I have to go make sure she's not hurt. Compulsion down to the letter. She works it in her favor. He goes over to go and loosen the ropes so she is not, to the letter, hurt. She has already gotten these strings frayed enough. She snaps them off the pipe, grabs the shotgun out of his hands because he's not expecting it, whacks him over the head with the butt of the shotgun. Down for the count. Mastermind! She's so good. She rushes to Stefan, asks how she can help, and he's like, the pieces of wood are scraping against my heart. You need to get every piece out of my chest. She's like, all right. She goes, she starts pulling. She's moving really slowly at first. He starts crying out in pain and is just like, please, just get it out. She says, keep squirming and maybe I'll feel sorry for you. And then yanks a particularly large piece out. And it's so good. One of my favorite scenes, this one, where he looks up at her after she does this and he's like, you've changed. You're stronger, tougher. And she says, you're not the only one who's changed. We all had to. And he says, it's good though. After the nightmare of the previous episode, they have this really, really good moment where it's like, yeah, no, you're growing in this crazy world you've been stuck in and you are sailing through it. It's very impressive and it's really cool. She then tells him that she kissed Damon, not because she feels guilty that it happened, but because she feels guilty he doesn't know. He is silent after that, and when she's done pulling out the wood chips, he walks off. She goes after him and finds him and asks him to say something, and he says, I shouldn't have kidnapped you. All that stuff that happened in the car, that was too far. And she thanks him for that. She says, She didn't plan on kissing Damon, and Stefan tells her, "You're better than him." Brief pause. "You're better than both of us." Where a lesser man would have just said, "You're better than him," right? As a shade to Damon. But Stefan's saying, "You deserve so much more than what we have brought into your life."
Which is, as I've said, it's what the writers were planning originally, where they were like, we want the story to end with Elena with neither of these men.
That is the moment where it seems most clear that, like, oh, potentially. It's also the fact that, like, occasionally, like I said, because she's been hanging out with Matt more, some moments feel a little bit like, I don't know, again, maybe it's just because they have really good chemistry, but it's like, oh, is there a potentiality of her getting back with Matt? Not likely, but, you know, who knows?
I think Matt was always open to it.
Oh, darling Matthew.
Even while dating Caroline.
Whole time, all the way through. He says later in a conversation with Elena, when you fall in love with somebody, you just can't shake them. And it's like, oh, is that so, Matthew? I couldn't tell. And sorry to end on a depressing note, but that's where we're going to leave it.
It is the Vampire Diaries.
It is the Vampire Diaries, ladies and gentlemen. And everyone in between and outside, thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, have any queries, or just like to say hi, you can mail us at animalattackpod@gmail.com. You can also tweet us at animattackpod. That's at ANIM Attack Pod. You'll find a link tree in our bio that has all our online stuff. From us, we wave you goodbye, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers!
Bye.